All right. Let me call to order the City of Lincoln City City Council meeting of July 13th, 2020. It's 6:03. And for those who are listening, you can always make public comment at publiccomment@lincolncity.org, or can physically go into the chamber, and there's opportunity there to make comment as well. Mr. Twig, could you do roll call, please?
I certainly can. Anderson.
Yes.
Casper.
Here.
Hinton.
Yes. Here.
Oakland.
Here.
Coos.
Here.
Mark.
Here.
And Parsons.
Here.
All right. Great. Thank you. We're going to suspend with the flag Pledge of Allegiance and move right to the consent agenda. And we've removed item 4 off the consent agenda, and because that item was actually done at our last meeting on June 22nd. So the consent agenda consists of minutes from the work session of March 16th, 2020, minutes from the special meeting of June 29th, 2020, and an Oregon Liquor Control Commission application for on and off premise license for the new operation called Pub Fish and Chips. Is there anybody want to remove one for further discussion? Seeing none, then I'd entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make the motion to approve consent agenda.
I'll second that.
We have a motion to approve by Mr. Parsons and second by Mr. Mark. All those in favor with an aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed with a nay? All right. Thank you very much. Then this would be our normal process for public comments. Before we do public comments, Mr. Chandler, you've indicated that there's been a lot of, or you've been collecting, I guess, comments since June 22nd, our last meeting, and have them summarized statistically. My question, though, is, so this is one kind of good of the order process. You know, typically at the meetings, you know, if we were live, people would come in and make a comment into the chamber. Or earlier in these Zoom meetings, we've taken comments that have come in that day, or something that's specific to an agenda item for a public hearing or whatnot. So I'm wondering out loud why we would be collecting, you know, emails since, you know, the end of time, beginning of time, or the last meeting. And if we are, fine, and if they're appropriate, or put them all to this meeting's record so that the public's able to see them and read them, and we as well. We've, I think, seen most of them. So it's kind of a procedural question I would have.
So, Mr. Mayor, these emails have come either to the public comment email that we set up, okay, or they have had something in them that has said, please have this read in or have this presented at the city council meeting. We receive many, many more emails than the ones that I've just presented, and those we don't forward or we don't put into the public comments, but these ones specifically came to that email, or they came to my email saying, please have this as part of the discussion in some way.
But so my concern is, as we go on with this, that that's the easy way for certainly people to be heard, and heard about anything, I guess. And I'm remembering the night we had 59 emails, and you took the task of trying to summarize or statistics. And I'm wondering out loud, as the new normal, you know, is upon us, how we might best handle these, because the definition you've just given, then, you know, anybody that wants to just says, you know, I want a public comment, or come in through that public comment platform.
we could, there's a couple of options that we have, well, three. We could limit them to those that we received at that day. We could put them as part of the packet so that people could read that. However, I do receive most of the emails after we publish the packet. We could, I think I said this, we could read them, or we could do as I've been doing, and that's just bringing them into the record, and I can try to summarize as best I can. The real kind of big question that you have on this is in the midst of the COVID pandemic, where you're not able to meet, so people can't come, this is kind of the next best alternative. And so it's really kind of what is the intent that you're doing this. Some of these do not pertain to anything on the agenda, which is often what we receive when people come in.
Right.
But others do pertain to things that are on the agenda but do not have a public hearing or a public forum for those agenda items.
Right.
And most of them tonight are that case.
Yeah. Okay. Mr. Appicello, are we in any kind of arena of legal clarification or needing to be consistent in some fashion?
Yeah, I believe we should try to be consistent. I'm not exactly sure what we told people we would be doing, but you can come in and you can address the city council by standing at the podium or sitting at the podium and speaking for 5 minutes, or you can communicate by sending an email, which is safer given the COVID-19 situation. So I think we should simply tell people that when they wish to email us, we will give that information to the elected officials, but we're not going to read their email out loud and then publish it as part of the being broadcast. If they want to get on camera, they can come to the city hall and they can sit at the podium and speak. The only one there is David Twigg, so it's not really a problem COVID-19 wise. There is apparently one gentleman there for a public hearing who's there to communicate with you. Now, if someone, I've said this before, when this is a business meeting, we do allow for comments from the public, but when it doesn't concern anything on the agenda, it's taking away from all your staff and consultants' time to get our work done. So I've advocated to have a separate meeting for that. I've told you that before. But
Yeah.
I think that I don't know what you told people on the website about we will read or will submit your comment to the decision maker. I would argue at the very least, Ron needs to enter all those into the record and give them all to you. I assume they've all been forwarded to the council members by now.
Yeah.
So you have them. If they pertain to items on the agenda, I would ask you to take a moment to read them before you act on the agenda items, if they are in fact items where the hearing is still open or the record is still open.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Just any counselors have a weigh-in, just thoughts on this? Because I don't think it's out of hand now, but I'm just forecasting as we do more and more of these, and I think we will be Zoom meetings. We certainly want to encourage comments, but at the same time, control the time spent on just ranting, I guess, or yeah. Deanna, you're up. Yep, there you go.
Yeah, I just, the only thing I want to say is that after, I think we're learning our way around COVID and how to behave as, a city council, as a city, and in every aspects of our life. And so I think what I've heard and what I've read, comments from people about comments, public comment, is that after our first meeting, when Mr. Chandler read all of those comments, they were all, they were important. We needed to hear them. There wasn't time to send them out to all of us before the meeting so we could read them. I mean, it was a timely thing as well, if I remember correctly. And people saw that. And so the comments I'm getting are, well, you read them, and then the next meeting, Mr. Chandler didn't read them. And they want to be heard. They want some transparency about what issues people have. And so that's my comment, is what I have heard from others, is they think we're hiding something or don't want to share what other people are thinking or telling the council. And quite frankly, I think people are just afraid to come into City Hall. They're staying at home as much as possible. So that's my comment.
Okay. Mr. Chandler. Yep, Ron.
Mr. Mayor, I have one thing you may want to do today is that in the summary that I have, most of the letters, especially those that are pertaining to an agenda item, I have identified the person who wrote that email, and then try to give a summary of the meat of what they were asking. And so if you're looking for a balance between reading 16 or 17 emails versus just being able to introduce them in the record with a summary, tonight where we are identifying who the people are and a little bit of a summary of it might help.
Okay. Well, if you wouldn't mind, why don't we try that for this evening and see? Because I think it's one, and still make them, they obviously are part of the record by, this summary. So go.
Okay.
So this would be public comments time. Why don't you go ahead, Mr. Chandler?
So we received emails pertaining to masks from Cassandra Anderson, Laurel Barton, oh, I'm sorry, one that I redacted the name out of it, and I don't have who that person is. Constance Wentz, and their comments were really associated with requesting a sign from ODOT to inform people to wear masks, and complaints about businesses not requiring patrons to wear masks. We received an email from Claire Hagan of the Sapphire Center, thanking the city for the money that they have received through the Economic Relief Aid Program. We received an email from Nikki Hayes, offering thanks to Officer Rigg of our police department for assistance in an incident to which he was called. We received an email from David Jameson. And again, these are just some summaries. There's some quotes that are in them, but they're not the full email. Those are now, I have sent those to David Twigg to add as part of our record. He stated some concerted efforts to address the source of illegal fireworks in Oregon. We need to rethink rethinking of legal Oregon fireworks in Lincoln City, and have zero tolerance for fireworks in Lincoln City neighborhoods and on the beach. From Russell Carroll, we received the following recommendations. Education is not working. The city needs greater enforcement. We need to check for illegal items prior to entry on the beach. We need to hire security guards. We need to require VRDs to post in their dwellings that it is illegal, that the illegal fireworks will be confiscated and fines issued, and that we research how other communities are dealing with illegal fireworks. From Cindy Thompson, we received fireworks are going off before and after the 4th of July, and education is not working. From Annette Guido, we received what we're doing isn't working. She has concerns about her safety and trash on the beaches and in the neighborhoods. From Patty Crowan, she recommended that we ban the sale of all fireworks, legal and otherwise, in the city. We close the beaches at dusk on July 4th until 7 a.m. on July 5th. We hold VRD management companies and owners responsible for illegal behavior in their rentals. We require VRDs to post on their rental websites and inside the dwellings a poster regarding consequences for illegal activities. We hire and maintain staff to oversee the VRDs. From Janet Knipe, we received comments of overarching concerns. These were comments that were made during the REIA meeting, that the area was like a war zone. It was the worst that they've experienced in 15 years. The police are overwhelmed with calls. The noise was overwhelming. That the education campaign has not worked, that the additional signs put out by REIA have not worked. As to the police presence, the police cannot manage the situation. The police seem frantic and law enforcement has been lax. Also a question, how many citations were issued and what would encourage better enforcement? For VRDs, we need to reach out to the VRDs community is essential. Some VRDs are fine, others are bad actors and have no respect for the neighborhood. The onus of responsibility is on the VRD owners and management. It's a possible solution. There should be an extra notice in the VRD materials explaining that fireworks are illegal. Require VRD owners to post in their dwelling and on the web page that roads in houses that fireworks are not allowed. Send all VRD owners notices that the problems with fireworks have gotten so bad and give them a warning. Close all parking lots to the beach. Control and stop sales of all fireworks, legal and illegal. The police should use pre-printed tickets. Change the court system so violators can just be given tickets so the police don't need to show up in court. Reach out to second homeowners about their guests and have someone at each access point with large signs telling people about the fines. And there must be some authority that allows for authorized personnel to check people for illegal items at entry to events. Then from Judith and William Flynn, we should confiscate any fireworks before they actually reach the beach. And then one that came in since I sent this was from Jill Townsend, and she suggested assess a fee to all short-term rentals, VRDs, and hotels and managed motels and campgrounds, and then hire enforcers that have identified the offenders to the Lincoln City Police. So that is a summary of theirs, Mayor.
Great. Thank you. All right. And you said the individual in the chamber is for one of the hearings? Comments?
Mayor, yes, he's here for the Bard Road item.
Okay. All right. Well, why don't we go to that at this point? This would be the public comment. And this would be the ordinance 2020-18 Southwest Bard Road LID.
Your Honor, before you hear from the public, the code actually doesn't require a public hearing, but as I explained in the council communication, the staff had noticed it, that you'd have one opportunity here to one last minute opportunity to comment. They noticed it as a public hearing. There was actually a deadline to submit objections, and then also this opportunity to speak. If I could ask that you open the hearing, ask if there's anyone with a conflict of interest or an ex parte contact or bias, and then move on from there.
All right. Why don't I do that? We'll act as it is, as if it is a public hearing, and we'll open the public hearing for ordinance 2020-18, Southwest Bard Road LID, and ask the question of council if there's any bias or conflict of interest or ex parte contact. Anyone? I see no hands up or everybody shaking their heads, none. So I would say we're covered with that. The typical normal fashion would be for a staff report. Is that Anne Marie? Are you or is there Public Works?
I think I may be doing this.
Okay.
So essentially what you have is the Bard Road LID, it's a local improvement district. Staff came along and asked.
I'm going to turn this down where it'll echo.
Okay.
Just so
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Apichello. You might, Mr. Twig, would you mute that for a minute? Thank you. All right, Mr. Apichello.
Okay, so what I can tell you is this is the final step in the LID process. This is the final assessment. The improvement has been constructed. It ended up being less to build it than the estimate. So what that really means is that everything before now, the initiation resolution and the formation resolution, that had a higher number, it came in under budget, so the assessments on the benefited property owners will all be less than everybody had talked about up to now. Essentially, what we're doing here is adopting an ordinance. Attached to the ordinance is the engineer's report, and the engineer's report has the assessment numbers for the individual property owners.
Right.
And that's it.
All right. Well, thank you. Any questions from council, Mr. Apichello, or anybody else? We can see if we can get your questions answered.
And we have the public who wants to comment.
Yeah, but any council questions? I don't see any. All right. In that case, yes, we'll take the public comments. Would you mind introducing yourself, sir? Yeah, go ahead, sir. Just go ahead and introduce yourself.
My name is Robert Thomas.
All right, thank you.
I live at 2216 Southwest Bard Road here in Lincoln City. I've lived there since 1990, 30 years. I've wanted to, I'd say within the first 10 years, I wanted a sewer situation done on Bard Road, and I got pretty much involved with Stephanie and everything about 15 years ago. It's been that long, about a sewer project on Bard Road. In the last 30 years, there hasn't been one new board I can find between Highway 101 and the forested area near Riviera Beach that is new. There hasn't been one new garage or any kind of structure on Bard Road since 1990. You know, and all of a sudden we got these great big figures on assessments that here, there, and everywhere. And unfortunately, I feel that I was instrumental in to a degree on making this final assessment for the city, because I spent about $35,000 back in 2004 building a 70-foot retaining wall to try and support a one-bedroom summer shack on Bard Road that was too close to the street for the city, you know. And they wanted me to doze it down or something, but it was grandfathered in, you know. So I couldn't do, and I had no place to go if I did take it down. So there's always been a hassle, you know, with my carport and the house. The house is only 550 square feet, and it won't finance at the bank, and it's got some other, you know, it's livable. That's about it. And I've never put any money in the house. I didn't like the house in the first place, but I think Bard Road is about one of the key locations for the city, or for new construction, or for anything, you know, in the whole area. But from my experience, it's been totally ignored by the city for at least 15 of the 30 years. And then I was kind of indirectly promised that something would be done about it for about the last 10. And there's a couple of things about Bard Road that Olivia Beach because with my new with my wall construction and everything, it's a 70-foot retaining wall. It was a circular driveway, but I ended that about a month ago with Rodriguez Construction Company helping the city out on the sewer project. That kind of ended as far as a circular driveway, but it took up too much room. There's a limited amount of regular space on Bard Road. You have Agnes Creek on one side, you have Highway 1 on the other, you know, and 3/4 of all the land on either side of Bard Road is going downhill. There's a real premium. I say the only one that has an advantage on that is Drayton, because he's right when you come up over the hill from Highway 101 going south, you know, and he's kind of higher than everybody else. So he can do more because he doesn't have to worry about erosion, and he has more opportunity to do something for 24 units of property, or 20. They got me down as 21, you know, and him I think at 24. Well, his 24 makes sense. My 21 doesn't, you know, because I only got 165 feet of land, and I paid an arm and a leg just to clear it off. I had stumps as high as telephone lines, you know, and I'm only about 70 feet deep. And by the time you put 22 units on there, you're going to have a 3-story building, and they have to be 2-bedroom to rent, you know, and there's going to be no place to park, you know, and it's going to look like you're going to the movies, outdoor movie theater or something, you know. And I think it hasn't been handled right on this final estimate with Olivia Beach, and I feel that I'm responsible for some of these figures on this page, because Olivia Beach had people that were going out there with $750,000, you know, and if the guy built a two stories and realized he still didn't have a view of the ocean, so he go to the bank and refinance and tack on another story on his building plan. You know, well, you aren't going to be doing that on Bard Road. And I'm at a position when I was grossing $100,000 in the light business and doing everything myself, no computers, no nothing, just me. You know, up until 2004, and then things started to drop off. T12s became T8s, became CFLs, became LEDs, became LED programs, and now we have the pandemic, and I'm out of business. And I'm sitting here talking to you today with this final assessment in front of me, and I'm waiting for my unemployment, self-employment unemployment insurance to kick in the end of August. You know, so we got a serious problem in the country on our hands, this pandemic. And another thing too, I might be getting wordy here, but I want to cover everything, is that 23rd Avenue makes a lot of sense, having 23rd for Lincoln City, coming across the highway, you know, down instead of going down to jamming up everything down by the post office. It was a good move by the city to bring Bard Road in. They really didn't have much choice anyway, but it makes sense, you know. But the thing about it's how we're handling the assessment of constructing this. I'm thinking of putting in storage units, because I can't afford new construction. I'm 77 years old. I got 2 or 3 people around me, homeowners around me that are struggling. one was working at Moe's and never got hired back at 15 to 20 bucks an hour, and he's trying to buy his house, and he's letting everything go to pot so he doesn't have to, nobody raises his taxes. You know, and I feel all these different situations, I'm partially responsible for some of it, because I spent at the time I spent the 35 grand, I was saving about 15. I had an excavator parked on my property for about 3 weeks, you know, and I could afford it, you know, but the lots just aren't big enough to support a tremendous influx of people, in my opinion. And there's the area between Sanchez on the west end and Olivia Beach is a wooded area, and Sanchez and another party own quite a bit of property in there, about a half an acre or more, and they've owned it a long time, and I didn't know that till lately, you know, and that they don't even figure into this assessment on Bard Road. There's no manholes, no nothing going up that hill, you know, but there are two rest areas up there, and the city should have a clean out, at least on the lower one, but it didn't happen. I wanted to mention something about it, but I just let it pass when Rodriguez was out here putting in the manhole, you know, so that should have happened, because eventually you're going to need a regular restroom, you know, near Bard Road, you know, because there's no place for kids to play or anything. Everything's going to be concrete and building, because there's no place to go for expansion. You know, you're going to have to go 3 stories, you know, so I'd like to have this final assessment postponed until next year, till after the holidays. Try and find out if we're going what the pandemic is going to do to the economy. We got everybody around the country concerned about what's going to happen. Well, all these extra infections and everything, and I can't afford anything right now. I'm lucky to keep what I've been spending all this year keeping what I had the end of last year. Now, it's no fortune, but I'm a senior citizen, and I didn't handle things very well back in 2004, and I'm not blaming the city for that. But between the city and the way I did things, I kind of dug a hole for myself. But it doesn't need to be a hole for everybody on Bard Road. And I think this needs to be reevaluated, this final proposal, and reevaluated and put off for 6 months.
All right.
But
Thank you. Yep.
Because that's just the way I feel about it.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay. So I'd ask that if there's no other public comment, that we close the public hearing and close the record, and then I have some legal advice, and then we can talk about this later when we get to the ordinance. But I think maybe there's just one thing I should probably touch base on here.
Well, let me check if Mr. Twig, is there anybody else in the chambers? Evidently not. And Ron, did anything come in on the email?
Sorry,
Or?
ma'am. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
So Mr. Thomas would like to speak a little more. Does he have your will to do so?
No, he's used up his time, but thank you. All right.
Sorry, sir. They said you used your time.
I know there's been a lot of it.
And Mr. Mayor, nothing in the public comment.
All right. Well, thank you. So at this point then, we'd entertain a motion to close the hearing and the record.
I'll make that motion. I'm afraid Mr. Thompson's still talking there.
Right, that's okay. David's there.
I'll second it.
And Diane Hinton Councilor Hinton has seconded the motion. Thank you. So all those in favor of closing the hearing and the record, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed with a nay? Hearing none. Thank you. Mr. Appicello, you had a comment?
So the next steps is we basically do the first reading of the ordinance and the second reading of the ordinance. I'd like you to do the first reading of the ordinance this evening, not right now, but when we get to it on the agenda. And then I'd like you to set second reading for the next meeting. The only issue is that the gentleman that spoke, he's on the list for the assessments, Robert Thomas, and there's a place where it talks about potential multifamily units. There are at least 3 property owners with kind of a large number of potential units, and I don't see any express provision for deferral of payments. in the engineer's report. So I want to make sure that we didn't miss something and explain the deferral option with those 3 property owners. So that's why when we get to it, I'd ask that you do second reading at the next meeting, so we can, if we have to add something about deferral of potential units, we can do that.
All right. Thank you, sir. So then going down back, we have a second public hearing, and this is ZOA 2020-01, procedures. And this is, I'd open the public hearing and again ask, and this is a formal public hearing, correct? Yep. Is there any conflicts of interest or bias or ex parte of the council? Seeing and hearing none.
It is still, it is a legislative hearing, so typically don't have the same issues.
All right, great. Okay, Anne Marie, staff report, is it yours? All right, thank you.
It is. Thank you, Mayor. The current Title 17, the chapter for procedures in Title 17 does not have procedures categorized as type 1, 2, 3, or 4. To provide a very clear method of identifying the review process for a particular land use application, staff is proposing to organize the current land use procedures into one of the 4 number types. Type 1 is a ministerial, and that is handled on a staff level. It's very clear-cut. The standards are yes and no. So for instance, a home occupation permit is a type 1. Does the person live in the home? Yes. Does the person have any employees? No. You know, very simple yes, no, like that. Type 2 is an administrative procedure, which is also done at a staff level, but there is more subjectivity involved. And type 2 requires a public notice, not a public hearing. And the decision is issued by staff. Type 3 is quasi-judicial, and type 3 procedures require a public hearing. Type 4 is legislative, and the intent of this ordinance amendment, again, as I said, is to organize all of our different types of processes and applications into one of those 4 procedure types. And the ordinance, the draft ordinance, provides a chart that lists all of the applications and which type they would be. And then it introduces a new chapter that lists all of the different types of applications and the requirement for each application, meaning is a pre-application conference required? What are the criteria for approving it? Is public notice required? So everything is outlined and spelled very clearly, and it provides transparency for everyone. It provides a very hopefully easy method for the public, just, you know, the normal average everyday person who doesn't develop hardly at all. Hopefully we'll be able to reference these 2 chapters and be able to understand the process much better than what we have in place now. And there are no substantive changes, meaning that the hearing notice requirements are the same. They're not being changed. You know, we still have to notify people within 250 feet. So those types of distances, et cetera, none of that is changing. It's just reorganizing it into an easier way for people to navigate the system, in other words. And I know staff is very excited about it. It'll make it easier for them. And Planning Commission did recommend approval. And I was not able to get the signed document of their final recommendation into the packet, but they did sign it. I just haven't gotten that hard copy yet. So, and with that, I would be open to any questions.
All right. Well, thank you very much. And I hate to say it, but it almost sounds very logical and sensible. And there should be a lot of questions, you know, with that having so cut and dry. But
that is the hope, the goal. That's the goal.
No, that we're going to have a lot of questions of why would you do that, because it seems to be so helpful. You know, it's not like government. You know. I'm only kidding. Someone with a question of Anne Marie and this staff report regarding this procedures. Deanna.
I just have one for now, but when we go through the ordinance, I might have others. But so the Planning Commission approved this. Did they have any recommendations, or it was just a unanimous approval as is?
They did not have any recommendations as it is written right now.
Okay.
Anyone else have a question? If not, I'd entertain a motion to close the hearing and the record. Before you make that motion, Ron, nobody's come in with any comments? Okay. And nobody in the chamber?
No, sir.
All right. All right, now I'd entertain a motion. Yes, Mr. Margo.
I will move that we close the public hearing and the record for ZOA 2020-01 procedures.
Second.
And Mr. Parsons does the second, so we've got a motion and a second to close the hearing and the record. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed with an A? Hearing none. Thank you. All right, thank you, Anne Marie. Let's move to then the actual ordinances. And this is ordinance number 2020-10. Is this Mr. Apicello or zoning or?
No, it's me.
Okay.
So this is the actual ordinance, ordinance number 2020-10. This is first reading ordinance 2020-10, an ordinance of the City of Lincoln City amending the Lincoln City Municipal Code, Title 17, zoning, amending all of Chapter 1720, multiple family residential RM zone, amending Chapter 1724, professional campus PC zone, Section 1724-020F, Chapter 1728, recreation commercial, that should be RC, not GC, Section 1728-040F, Chapter 1732, general commercial GC zone, Section 1732K, 040K, and 1732-110E, Chapter 1734, Nelscott Plan NP District, Section 1734-060, Table 1734-060B, Chapter 1745, Taft Village Core TVC Zone, Section 1745-040, Table TVC, Land Use Activity, Chapter 1752, Supplementary Regulations and Exceptions, Section 1752-210E2, and amending all of Chapter 1774, Commercial Design Standards. Ask for approval of first reading.
Is there a motion? Yes.
I move to approve first reading of ordinance 2020-10.
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Parsons. Thank you. So discussion. Deanna.
Well, I'm a little bit confused, so maybe you can help me. But anyway, for 2010, I just have a question on the page 36, line 39. That's footnote number 5, and it says provides parking for RV, boats, campers, etc. Has this always been in the ordinance? Okay. I just wasn't sure about that. And then on page, way up here on page 87, line 14. Are you all with me? This is a huge packet. Anyway, and this is about color for design, commercial design standards that we've been working on for years. Anyway, I just have a question because now it says it allows for bright colors, and that wasn't what we were talking about before, so I'm kind of curious about that, and it seems to be a new concept. So, and I've compared what was in the existing, our current ordinance to what we have now in this ordinance, and it is different. So Anne Marie, that was on page 87. Line 14.
I'm looking at, I'm trying to find it right now. Color, muted and subtle earth tones are neutral colors.
If you'd like, I could read what was and what is, so you know what I mean. But
Okay.
while you're finding your place. So the current one is color schemes should be simple and coordinated over the entire building. So well, not so, but to establish a sense of overall composition, color schemes should tie together signs, ornamentation, awnings, canopies, and entrances. There shall be no more than one base color for every 25 feet of the front elevation. One base color for the entire front elevation is preferred. And then this is what it says here about other colors. Using only one or two accent colors is also preferred, except where precedent exists for using more than two colors with some architectural styles, arts, and crafts. As an example, natural wood finishes are appropriate for doors, windows, sashes, trims, and signs, canopies, and other architectural accents. Luminescent, sparkling, neon, and day glow colors are not allowed, e.g. outlining building, except that neon signs are allowed subject to applicable sign codes. Metals can be brushed, finished, or painted in earth tones, and then it goes on from there. And then the new one, the new language says under color, a lot of it is the same until it gets to this part. Let me see. Muted and subtle earth tones or neutral colors that are low reflectance shades are preferred as the primary colors of buildings. Brighter colors are acceptable if one or more of the adjacent buildings have brighter colors, and if the chosen colors are complementary to the brighter colors of either or both of the adjacent buildings. And that's new language, and I don't think that's where we were going. We weren't talking about bright colors before. We were actually, we're trying to change the whole color scheme to more natural, and I mean, that's the conversation we've been having for years. So
you can certainly strike that, Councillor Hinton, if you choose. This language is taken from either Ocean Lake or Taft or Nelscott.
It looks like Ocean Lake, but we were doing away with the pearls, I thought. I mean, as a concept.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so this was my attempt to combine them all. And so I took that from Ocean Lake and put that in there. Again, if you don't want it, That just strike that sentence.
Okay. Yeah, I think
And it would be, yeah, it would just be striking that one sentence.
okay.
Everything else is the same.
Okay.
Anne Marie, I don't know what sentence you're striking.
It's, okay, if you're on page, it's packet page 86. It's page 58 of the ordinance. And it says 7 color, and then it says A, which is line 16. You see where I am? And then that, so it gives that first sentence, muted and subtle, etc. And then it's that second sentence of 7A.
So you want to get rid of the brighter colors are acceptable sentence?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
You find it, Mr. Apcello?
Yes, I did. So the language should be stricken would be brighter colors are acceptable if one or both of the adjacent buildings have brighter colors, and if the chosen colors are complementary to the brighter colors of either or both of the adjacent buildings. So that language would be stricken.
Yeah, that's right. And were there any other, this was such a big packet that was just something that jumped out at me. Were there any other things like that in here that we should be aware of?
Oh my goodness. I
know.
don't think so.
No, it's I mean, 586 pages is a lot within a couple of days for us to read, let alone to try and parse out. So this one, like I said, just jumped out at me.
My recommendation for all the ordinances is to do first reading tonight and give it 2 weeks to make sure we didn't miss anything.
Suggestion. Councilor Casper?
Yes. On page 45, line 9, it says C is for conditional use, but on page 46, there's a CU, and I think you mean to mean C, and it's used somewhere else. CU, either it's a C or it's a CU. Not a big deal. On page 53, we talk about land uses in Taft. Well, there's a big storage unit there, and I don't know where that fits into the planet of Taft planning. That doesn't even talk about that storage area in Taft, but it's there.
Well, it would be, Councilor Casper, it would be non-conforming. None of the land use changes that you see here changed.
Okay.
All the land uses are the same as what they are now. It was just easier to bring them over and strike than it was to go through the Taft, Ocean Lake, and Nell Scott and strike individually. So while it's all underlined looking like it's new, it's not new. The uses are all the same, and the storage is a non-conforming.
So that storage unit there can be retained as a non-conforming storage unit.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I just wanted to be clear about it. And on page 60, it mentions no wireless communication facilities are allowed, but then farther on in another ordinance, like on page 387, it talks about wireless communication facilities obtaining a conditional use. Is there some reason why we're not allowing wireless facilities here, and then we're providing for conditional use later on?
Well, they're allowed in some zones as conditional use,
Okay,
and they're not allowed in other zones.
Okay, because all of these had that they weren't allowed. But then when we talked about conditional uses, it said that they could apply for conditional use. So if they're not allowed in the zones,
which page are you referring to? Let me get there.
Okay, page 60. That's one.
Okay. Page 60 of the ordinance or page 60 of the packet?
The packet.
Okay. I don't see it on page 60.
59 on mine.
Oh, 59. Yeah, 59, sorry.
Okay, so this is wireless communication facilities, and they are not allowed in this zone, which is
Ocean Lake.
so they're not allowed in Ocean Lake.
Well, all of these say they're not allowed in Ocean Lake and Taft and
Mm-hmm.
but then on page 388,
Okay.
it says that they can be 80 feet tall, they can have a monopole or something else to be negotiated.
Yes, because that is a completely different section of the code.
Okay.
That is where it's describing the standards that apply to wireless communication facilities in the zones that do allow them conditionally.
So
It's in chapter 17.80.
So what zones are left where they can be allowed?
They're allowed conditionally, I believe, in the general commercial and the light industrial and perhaps recreation commercial, professional campus.
Okay. Okay. All right, that clears that up. That's it.
Okay. Mr. Mark, you've got a question?
This is more of a concern about process here. You know, an ordinance like this, it's gone through, and I've seen this before on this design issue, where the elements, the multiple elements in here, have gone through some procedure of consultants and staff and planning commission, and it comes to us, and Councillor Hinton, I have a lot of regard for your personal taste, but that issue about the colors, suddenly we just eliminated from the ordinance language that allows somebody to, in certain situations, to have bright colors on their house. And I don't know, I mean, it seems to me I saw a posting on Facebook of some local resident who painted their house in bright colors, and lots of people said, wow, that looks fantastic, and that's terrific. And I'm just not sure if this body right here is the right forum for us to make that decision so abruptly. I mean, one counselor says, oh, strike that line, and then the planning director says, oh, okay, well, that's done. So it seems like there ought to be more input into a decision like that. That's a big change in this ordinance, and I object to it. So and just on it's not so much I care so much about the colors. I just kind of object to it being handled that way.
Well, Mr. Mark, let me help you with that. And nothing's passed yet, and you're doing the right thing. You've just raised the hand as we go through these things, because actually this whole ordinance process right now is, if you go back to the hearing, all we're really doing, as Anne Marie talked about, was putting into chapter 17, you know, the what's it called, procedures. So we aren't, to her point, we weren't supposed to be changing criteria. She moved things from original ordinances over and go. So right now, that's what we're going through.
Actually, Your Honor, that's not this ordinance. This is
Okay.
This is the design standards ordinance.
Okay, so that was,
The public hearing was on the procedures ordinance. This is the design standards, which did go through numerous meetings and started with the consultant. And I think 2 prior planning directors. So it's been around for a while.
And Councilor Mark, 2 things. One, this doesn't apply to housing. The design standards apply to new commercial development. And 2, it's City Council's ordinance. So the city councilors need to work it out amongst themselves if they don't like the brighter color. I don't feel that I have a say in that.
so, but I think, okay, Deanna?
I was just going to say, Anne-Marie, you don't have a say in it, but you brought that forward, and it wasn't from the last current ordinance. So anyway, I would just...
It is in the current ordinance. It's in Ocean Lake. This was, if the councilors recall, they wanted everything to be combined. They wanted all the pearls to be the same. So if you want all the pearls to be the same, Ocean Lake allows the brighter colors. So that is moved from Ocean Lake specifically now into design standards.
But
that was my understanding of what the councilors asked for.
okay, I think half of that is what I remember. We did want everything to look, to have the same look and feel. We spent tens of thousands of dollars on a consultant to help with preferences, and this is, like I said, years in the making. And so I stand by my comment that that's where we were. I'm afraid that Mr. Mark came in here later, but I stand by my statements.
But again, the process would be just what we're doing is if Mr. Mark wants to disagree, that would be fine because it's up to the council. It's before the council. So you're right on target, Mr. Mark. Councilor Hinton had an opinion and raised it and identified it. We haven't taken action yet. We're still walking through this, answering questions from councilors. So you're right on. You're okay.
I'm curious what other councilors might say about that, but it just feels like, yeah, I see us go through these deliberative processes and open forums and inviting people, to have their public say, and then and Deanna, this isn't directed at you. I mean, really, I got a great regard for your opinion here, but to have just one counselor decide, oh, I don't like this one element, boom, it's gone. It feels to me wrong.
Right.
And so I would like to keep that language the way it is, unless we had some other broader open forum to discuss a change like that.
Okay. Well, let's, Diane, did you weigh in on this topic?
Yes.
Okay, please.
I know that we talked about putting them all the pearls together, and I don't know, in my sense, there's so much to read, and to have it on a computer, I like paper, but I can't afford paper. But I think one of the things is we say brighter colors, but can you define what brighter means? I think for me, is it neon colors? No, we don't accept that. But a brighter green is, I guess the word brighter to me would have to be identified, or clarified.
Okay. Mr. Parsons, same subject?
Yeah, I just had the same question about how we're defining brighter. And I'm just going to say I'm currently for the current language as presented.
Okay. But you'd suggest definition of, like Diane,
Yes.
what does bright
Yes.
mean?
Define brighter.
Okay. Anyone else that, while we're on this, or to deal with the topic of color? Yes.
I just have a quick question. Deanna,
Okay.
what page was that on again?
Hang on a second.
87.
80 or 86.
Packet page 86.
Yeah, 86 and 87. And I just wanted to say too that my personal opinion aside, that what I was talking about was what we've been going way back when, even when I was on the planning commission years ago. It could be like 6 years ago. We were talking about this. We finally got it through a process. We spent a lot of money on a consultant to do the preference surveys and to talk with people out in the community. We held public meeting after public meeting after public meeting, and they consolidated all that information, and they came up with an idea and a look which was presented to us quite a while ago, I might say, but anyway, presented to us, and we accepted that. And so now when we're getting it back and it doesn't look the same to me, and it happens to be the bright color thing, then it's just, that's where my comment comes from. We've been through a years-long process with this, and we're finally getting things together. Things are getting reorganized, and I really appreciate that, Anne Marie. And there's been a lot of really good work on this, but this was one of the key pieces to that entire work. And so I can't let it go because that's where it started.
Right. And that's an excellent point. What you're bringing forward is, one, the question from what had previously been presented to us in this design standard, and to what you're seeing now, and that's what you were questioning, and that's good. So I don't know, Councilor Mark, whether that you don't recall the past presentation.
I'm not familiar with that particular discussion at all, but yeah, again, curious what Councilor Casper has to say. I don't really feel that strongly one way or the other. It just sort of felt sort of abrupt to me.
Sure.
And that was my concern.
Right. Ms. Casper.
Yeah, no, I remember this discussion also very well. We were talking about earth tones and blending in with the environment and the sky and the ocean and the sand. And the idea was to keep things muted. And if colors were going to be incorporated, there would be certain shades or tones. So I think by adding the brighter, it is a change in what we had the intent to be. Even though this might have come from Ocean Lake, it wasn't the intent to be carried out throughout the whole city. And I don't even remember brighter being in there, actually.
Okay. Mr. Hoagland has probably stepped away, I guess.
I don't have anything. I just would like further definitions again, as Mr. Parsons and Diane has said.
Okay, so either the other would be to go back to the suggested wording that was first presented to us, and I think Mr. Apicello already said, identified the line that could be struck, and that was just taking out, the bright color. Because I don't know, quite honestly, I don't know how you do define bright.
There is a lot in here about the muted colors and things like that. To give you a little bit of an idea, what bright is prohibited colors. It's on the next page. Luminescent, sparkling, neon, and day glow colors are not acceptable except that neon signs are allowed subject to applicable sign codes. So bright is obviously less than neon, day glow, sparkling, okay, luminescent, but it's obviously something more than muted colors. And that's throughout here. This is not the only page where they talk about muted colors. So
Okay. So, Mr. Mark, back to you. There's been discussion, to your point, which is good. It seems to.
I don't know how to write design standards myself, so it sort of leaves me. I think a brighter color as an accent, might be acceptable. I mean, I understand that we don't want sort of purple thumbs sticking out here and there randomly around town. I get that.
Well, I guess
I'll yield. I don't feel, like I say, go ahead.
Look, I guess what I'm hearing is Mr. Apicello read further, and bright is defined. It's defined by, not X is too bright, as his examples went. So I guess it's, to your point, you like the sound of bright. It's in this ordinance. Looking at, Judy and Deanna would say muted is in there also with, some capability of, certainly not neon. So, the question back is, is by striking that sentence, you leave no availability for even accenting. So
actually, Your Honor, that same paragraph includes the words, building trim may feature brighter colors as accents. That's in the same paragraph where we're striking the language.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so that would already be there then. Okay,
Yeah,
that's good.
Right.
Okay. So you could use a brighter color to accent. And
I personally don't think a change is necessary, and I'm thinking more along the terms of people having a right to do what they want with their property within reason, as long as they're not really being obnoxious. And I don't know that we sitting here today get to make that decision for people. So I like the language the way it is. That's just my feeling.
Your Honor, so that we don't get, a denial of the first reading motion, could we maybe just have a motion on in or out on the brighter colors language that I read?
okay. So what, Deanna, could you make a motion on eliminating that sentence?
Sure. I move to remove the second sentence on page 80, either 86 or 87, depending on your where you're using here. Under color, it's 7. It's number 7, color A, in the second sentence.
And that would be the reference to bright color.
Yeah, I can read it. Brighter.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's the sentence I read.
Yeah. So for reference, we'd have the record to go back to. Is there a second on that motion? Looks like Judy is making that second.
I second it.
Okay. So any further discussion? And so the motion is to remove the sentence that's in the existing ordinance or the proposed ordinance. Okay. All those in favor of the motion, which is to remove the sentence, say aye.
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 All those who oppose, say with a nay.
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 Okay. how about is Mr. Twig there? No.
I'm
Okay. Could you take a roll call on the motion, please?
Certainly. Anderson,
Yay, yes.
Casper,
Yes.
Hinton,
You're muted. You're
Thank
muted.
you. Yes, sorry.
that's quite all right. Hoagland,
Yes.
Coos,
Yes.
Mark,
No.
and Parsons.
No.
Motion passes 5-2.
All right, thank you. All right. So other questions other than color on this ordinance?
So we need a motion on first reading.
Oh, we started with the motion on the first reading. I think, so now we just need to vote on the motion.
Did I miss, who made the motion on first reading? Was it,
Let's do another one.
I was the second. I don't know who
Yeah, I thought.
made the motion.
I have it as Councillor Mark on the first and Mitch on the second.
All right,
Okay.
thank you. All right, so there's the motion to approve the ordinance with a second. Yes, Mr. Martin.
I think I moved to close the public hearing I think you should have another motion because I don't think you want to have two active motions on the floor.
Okay.
yeah, I agree.
All right, so let's go ahead and make a motion regarding ordinance 2020-10.
This is motion to approve first reading.
I'll make the motion to approve first reading of ordinance 2020-10 with that one
With the
line
changes.
struck. Yes,
The
with
change as read.
changes.
A
As
second.
read.
Oh,
And Ms. Casper made the second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion? Oh, you want a roll call? Okay, roll call, please, Mr. Twig.
Anderson,
Yes.
Casper,
Yes.
Hinton,
yes.
Hoagland,
Yes.
Coos,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
and Parsons.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
So, Your Honor, I will acknowledge there does appear to be something wrong with that table with the legend says C and the table says CU, so we'll fix that. But the question I have is, do you want to proceed with second reading or set second reading over to the next meeting, which is the 27th, I believe?
I guess, I'm a little concerned again, and happen to agree with Councilor Hinton that this was a lot of reading. I don't know how much reading is going to come with the next council meeting either. So somehow, if I could ask Mr. Chandler, do you have any idea of the depth of packet on the next meeting?
Give me just a minute and I'll find it.
Okay. So I agree that it's always helpful to read it one more time and, make sure.
And my recommendation is to set it over for second reading at the next.
Okay. But I just want to make sure we're not loading up.
We have this one memorized anyway.
Yeah. There's more to come here.
It's great bedtime reading.
Yeah.
Mayor, we have 7 items.
Ordinance, resolution, what?
Heavy duty stuff?
We have public hearing, an economic, oh, I'm sorry. We have 3 items, 4 items, then we have 3 that are urban renewal. We have closure of West Devils Lake Road for the construction. We have the villages renaming project. And then we have 2 ordinances, one on signs, and this one may be shifted. It's an ordinance relating to a franchise agreement.
Okay. All right. Well, why don't we go ahead then and take the advice of council and go ahead and do the second reading on the 23rd of July? Our next meeting?
27.
27? Okay, thank you.
So
All right.
You want to, is that unanimous consent?
Everybody
Yes.
shaking their head? Yep, I see. All right,
Yes, unanimous.
let's go to ordinance number 2020-14. This is on sign regulations.
Your Honor, hold on. Your Honor, Council, this is first reading of ordinance 2020-14, an ordinance of the City of Lincoln City amending the Lincoln City Municipal Code, Title 17, zoning, Chapter 1772, sign regulations, amending and updating city sign regulations, removing provisions for temporary signs and placing them in Chapter 934. This is the land use part of this. This is the Title 17 part. You've had a land use public hearing on this, records closed and the hearings closed. In part because you do not have Chapter 934 in front of you, I'd also recommend that you proceed and approve first reading of this and set second reading for the 27th.
Okay. All right, entertain a motion to approve first reading of ordinance 2020-14.
So moved.
Okay.
Second,
And who did the second?
I did.
Oh, thanks, brother. We have a motion to approve by Mr. Parsons with a second from Mr. Hoagland. Anne Marie, can you tell us about signs and what's in here, or is this?
It's pretty.
Thank you, Mayor. Basically, it's, again, there aren't any substantive changes. The allowances for permanent signs are the same. They're not changing. What is changing is that the allowances for permanent signs in Ocean Lake, Taft, and Nelscott are being removed and instead being added to the allowances for signs that are allowed in the rest of the city. And again, that was my understanding from council, that is the way they wanted to proceed, to have all the pearls and commercial zoning districts on a level playing field with signage.
Right.
So that is the main substantive change. And then what has been added are criteria for sign illumination to remove the subjectivity of what is in the current ordinance, which is just glare is prohibited, but it doesn't give any criteria for what glare is. So what has been added to this is, along with glare being prohibited, we now have criteria to establish what glare is, and that has been, and I obtained that from a national sign council. That was not something I came up with on my own.
Your Honor, the other thing is that the temporary sign provisions move out of Title 17 and go to 934.
Right, that's the other thing.
All right. Questions? All right. Deanna?
Mine's kind of a question of memory. Going back, way back when again. I thought we removed the roof signs. We were talking about that even with the design standards changes. And so anyway, it was just one of those things that jumped out at me, that I thought we removed the roof signs.
Roof
Because
signs
we-
are allowed.
I don't follow that either.
Okay. I just thought when we were talking about signage and design standards, I thought that that was one of the things that we were trying to do, is to have all the signs be more similar and more uniform and off the roofs. But
I don't know. I guess. No comments from anybody, recollection or concerns? Okay.
I know we talked a lot about them, but I don't recall what we came up with.
All right. So, questions? With that, then there's a motion on the table to approve this ordinance.
Motion to approve first reading is on the table.
Yes, we had Mr. Parsons made that. Where have you been, Mr. Apicillo? You know.
I'm right here.
Okay. And who was it? Judy, did you? Somebody made the second on that, but
Riley did.
Riley did. Blame Riley. All right. Mr. Twig, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
All right. How about a roll call on this motion for signs? The motion was to approve. Did you catch that motion earlier?
Yes, to approve first reading.
Right.
Yes, certainly.
Can
Anderson,
you remind us who made the motion and who seconded it?
this one, it's Mitch moved for this and Riley seconded.
All right, great. All right, roll call then.
Okay, Anderson,
Yes.
Casper. Is that a yes, Judy? Sorry, I was looking.
Yes,
Good.
sorry.
It looked like a yes. I just wanted to confirm. Deanna.
yes.
Riley Hoagland.
Yes.
Diane Cruz.
Yes.
Rick Mark.
Yes.
And Mitch Parsons.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, thank you. And if it's all right, consensus, unanimous consensus, we'll move this one also to July 27th council meeting. Anybody object? Seeing no objections, unanimous. All right. Okay, ordinance number 2020-15.
Your Honor, Council, this is first reading of ordinance 2020-15, an ordinance of the City of Lincoln City, amending the Lincoln City Municipal Code, Title 17, zoning, Chapter 1776, administrative provisions, replacing existing procedures with a new uniform procedural Chapter 1776 procedures, adding new Chapter 1777 applications, modifying, consolidating, relocating, or removing procedures and standards, removing other procedures and standards for a more efficient review process. Ask for approval of first reading, and again, the consensus to set second reading for July 27th.
Entertain a motion to approve. Someone, anyone, please.
So moved.
All right, thank you, Riley. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, thank you, Deanna. Now, this is where we had the public hearing on this one. So, right?
Yes.
Yes. All right, thank you. Just for
I'm just,
clarification.
tell you right now, I'm not sure what happened with the title here. I'm going to try to shorten that for the second reading.
Okay. All right. So there's a motion to approve with the second. Is any discussion? Deanna?
Thanks. I just have a dumb question, just because I can't remember, and then I have another question. So my first question is, I can't remember what the Natural Resources Development Review is about. Just, do you have a short? I just in reading it, I couldn't remember what that did.
It's for wetlands.
Okay. Okay, great. And then my second question is the Planned Unit Development Preliminary Master Plan Type 3 and the final master plan is Type 1, the final. So does this include like the villages when we get that? Because that would be a big one.
Yes, and unless, and I will defer to Mr. Apicello, I'm not sure how this would apply to projects that are already approved under the other, under the current Chapter 1776. I don't know if the final master plan for that would follow the procedure with 1776 now, or if it would follow this.
Okay.
I suppose we'll need to answer that question before the next meeting.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We know the hurdles in front of us now. So, all right. Any other questions?
Wait. I have a question.
Yes, Judy.
Somehow my pages got all messed up, but there was a category called Review Authority. Does that ring a bell to anybody? It had Planning Commission, Director. Does that ring a bell? I have it as page 330, but I'm doing it on my iPad and it's not coordinating with what I read previously. Oh, here, is this it? No.
Anne Marie, do you want to?
That's basically just who reviews it and makes the decision.
Right, there was a category and it said Review Authority, and then it listed these authorities because that was the question that I'd had previously. We use Review Authority in various places, and sometimes we define it and sometimes we don't. Like on page 339, it talks about Review Authority, and then again on the variance issue, we talked about Review Authority.
Mm-hmm.
And so
the table at the beginning lists the review authority for every
oh, here it is.
permit.
Here it is. Well, mine says page 330. What is that? 335. Review Authority, not applicable. Director, Planning Commission, blah blah blah. Council. My question is, when you refer to it in the ordinance, Review Authority, which review authority is it? We haven't designated it. Or
you have to go back to the table at the beginning of the chapter. So,
yeah.
And the table lists each item. It lists annexation, it lists home occupation permit, it lists variance, and then there's a column that says review authority.
Okay. And what page is that on? Do you remember at the top of your head?
Oh, let me look.
So a person has to know that there's this table as you read through here to know who the review authority is. Is that?
Well, it'd be at the start of the chapter. So
yeah, it's at the start of the chapter.
Back to page 318.
Thank you.
17, depending which one.
There
Or
it is.
that one.
319, whatever it is. Okay. Okay. All right. That
And-
clarifies my mystery. Thank you.
And certainly staff would know it. I think based on what Anne Marie has said, the idea is to coordinate all these so it's easier for the consumer, but by listing these things at the start of the chapter.
Right. Well, I'm pretending I'm the consumer, and if this consumer here didn't know that 318 was here, she'd go, "What?" Okay. Thank you.
That's all right. Staff would help you.
I'm sure.
Okay. All right. So any other questions? We have a motion to approve first reading with a second. Let's do roll call, please.
Okay, Anderson,
Yes.
Casper,
Yes.
Hinton,
Yes.
Hoagland,
Yes.
Hughes,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
and Parsons.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right. Thank you. And again, at the request of legal counsel to move this to for second reading on July 27th meeting. Consensus, unanimous. Don't see anybody raising a hand. No. All right. It is consensus. Thank you. Ordinance number 2020-13. Landscaping and off-street parking.
Mayor, basically this moves all of the parking and landscaping requirements from the various places throughout Title 17 and puts them all into the chapter for parking and creates a new chapter for landscaping. That's essentially what it does. There were parking requirements and landscaping requirements in the design standards, chapter 17.74. And then they were also reiterated in Ocean Lake, Nelscott, and Taft. And so this just combines them all into one place and refers the reader in each of those sections back to the respective chapter for either parking or landscaping. The other thing that the landscaping does is it hopefully makes the landscaping requirements more easily understood for single-family residential dwellings and duplexes. Right now, there's this weird, complicated point system. No one ever understands it, and I don't think anyone ever does it right either. So hopefully this achieves the same result, but it's more easily understood by just the normal person who prepares his landscape plan for his house.
Great. Thank you.
Your Honor, Counsel, this is first reading of ordinance number 2020-13, an ordinance amending the Lincoln State Municipal Code, Title 17, zoning, amending numerous chapters, consolidate and organize landscaping and off-street parking and loading requirements. Ask for approval of first reading, and if you desire, we can second reading for the 27th.
There a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I move
Yes.
to approve the first reading of ordinance 2020-13.
Second.
We have a second from Diane. Thank you. Thank you both. Questions? Deanna, go ahead.
Okay. Actually, I have three things. The first one is a comment. It's on, page 463, 1B, and there it's the over 1,000 square feet, and there's no number space given. It looks like maybe the 2 was meant to be in there, but it was crossed out too. I'm not quite sure. but it doesn't appear to have a number right now for spaces. Like I said, it appears like it's supposed to be number 2, but I mean 2 spaces, but the 2 is crossed out and underlined. That's why I think that's what was meant.
Which page is that?
It is 463. It's on the use and requirement table.
Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, the 2 should not be crossed out.
That's what I thought. Okay, just checking. And then also on the on number 2 below in that same table, the word on the right side of the table under requirement, the second line of it says more bedrooms and there's spacey. I kind of like that one, but
I'd like that too.
yeah, but I didn't quite think you meant that, but anyway,
That's just a typo.
I thought so. I have one more on page 470, and this one is E1A. And there's the word, on that first sentence, there's the word pearls in there, and I think we were just going to do districts or some other language besides referencing the pearls, right? Do you see what I mean? E1A, except that
Oh, I see what you
commercial
mean.
uses in buildings, and in the pearls, I think we were dropping that language, and weren't we? I think. Districts, I think is what we said. I'm not sure.
Business districts.
Business districts. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
That's it for me.
Oh, David Twig, I just received a text from someone saying that we aren't streaming right now, that everything turned off.
Oh, I'm not aware of that. Let me go investigate.
Okay, thank you. Okay. I'm assuming we're recording though. And
We are. It shows recording.
Yep.
So, Your Honor, I can make the corrections to those typos, and I'll read them before we do second reading at the next meeting.
Great. Okay. So is there any other questions?
Mayor, if I may, I have an update on the stream. Our encoder has gone down, so streaming is down over, for the moment. I will get the meeting up tomorrow from the Zoom recording. I'll convert it. So sorry about that. Not much I can do at the moment, but I'll fix it tomorrow.
Okay, thank you. All right. So we have a motion to approve with a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none. Mr. Twig, roll call, please.
Anderson,
Yes.
Casper,
Yes.
Hinton,
Yes.
Hoagland,
Yes.
Coos,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
and Parsons.
Yes. I think it's okay to mix up the order every once in a while.
I thought you guys wanted it alphabetically.
The system that is usually is whoever made the motion, the next person alphabetically is who she calls first.
Oh, so you got a lot
I
to-
believe. I believe.
I'll mix it up for you next time.
I don't think that's true. I think she just rotates.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's
I
just
do want it.
rotating them.
All right. Anyway, and unanimous consent to push this for a second reading to July 27th. Seeing no objections. All right. Ordinance number 2020-17.
Your Honor, Council, this is first reading of ordinance number 2020-17, an ordinance of the City of Lincoln City amending the Lincoln City Municipal Code, Title 17, zoning, Chapter 1708, definitions, amending and updating city definitions based on changes proposed in 3 other ordinances, 2020-10, 2020-13, and 2020-14. After approval of first reading and set second reading for July 27.
Mr. Parsons, go with the
So
motion.
moved.
So moved. Thank you. Is
I'll
there a
second.
And Mr. Mark with the second. Thank you. All right. Question. Love those definitions. Mr. Mark.
So my understanding that this is sort of a housekeeping thing that very cleverly put definitions in one place and don't have them, rather than have them interspersed among the ordinances. Is that what's happening here?
That is, you are essentially correct, yes.
So
That's good.
why essentially correct?
Because there were a few definitions that are new
Oh,
that I mean, I took the opportunity to add some definitions that we don't have that for land uses that whenever anyone comes to the counter and wants to know what that means, and
okay.
staff scratches their head and says, well, I'm not sure because we don't have a definition for it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Questions from council? Judy?
Yeah, my question again is on page 517, line number 38, daycare center, and then versus daycare home. And I was sort of under the impression that a daycare center had to have a license. I'm not sure. But I thought we were going to maybe need certification, maintain certification for that one.
That's right. We were going to check the state's definition for daycare center and mimic that
Okay.
for
'Cause I think
daycare
it's different
center.
than a daycare home, correct?
It is, yeah.
Good catch.
So can I ask the question, does a daycare home have to have any certification from the city that we know of?
No, other than just as a home occupation permit.
Okay.
Well, but there are requirements for a daycare, even, you know, in home, are there not? Over so many children?
Parents, some parents here on panel.
Yeah.
I believe you're correct, Mr. Mayor. Above a certain number, they do have to have a certain certification.
Yeah.
Use childcare.
It's all regulated by the state.
Okay.
So the city,
Yeah. So the question, if the question is, does the city have requirements? No, but the state does.
Okay.
right.
All right. Thank you. That helps. Okay. Any other, Deanna?
Excuse me. I just have a question, I guess, on page 514, and this is nursing homes, and I'm not, just because I've heard older folks say they don't like that term nursing home, and I know that my mother was in a skilled nursing facility. I think maybe that's the more current term, and the difference would be that that there's a nurse available 24/7.
The difficulty here is that and you're likely correct. The difficulty here is that the definitions are reflective of not the definition itself, but the term. the terms that are listed in definitions to be defined are reflective of the land uses that are allowed in Title 17. And
Okay.
skilled nursing facility isn't a land use that's designated in Title 17. Nursing home is. So what needs to happen, and this will be a great task for someone, after the comprehensive plan is updated, then all of the land uses in the different zones need to be looked at and updated according to the comprehensive plan. And then at that time, the definitions will have to be updated again.
Okay, so we'll just wait, huh?
Exactly.
Okay. And then on page 526, just like, let me get there and I can tell you what. Okay, about mid-page on, it's line 26, Pearls is defined there, and I don't know if you want to put in the, did you call them business districts?
It does say the 6 historic business districts. Would you like us to also add a definition for business districts? It's essentially the same thing.
No, I just thought we were dropping the reference to the Pearls, so that's all.
Oh, okay. Wow, Pearls are mentioned somewhere in Title 17. Otherwise, I wouldn't have put it in there.
Okay. All right, just checking. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Mitch, you've got a question?
Not a question. I was just going to reply to Councilor Hinton's nursing home or skilled nursing. They are two separate things. Skilled nursing, you have a nurse there all the time. In a nursing home, you just have a nurse for the facility who isn't necessarily on staff 24/7.
Okay.
So there's a little difference there.
Yep. Thank you. All right. Any other questions on this ordinance? We've got a motion and a second to approve first reading. Let's go with the roll call, Mr. Twig.
Thank you. Councillor Parsons.
Yes.
Councillor Mark.
Yes.
Councillor Coos.
Yes.
Councillor Higgins.
Yes. Was that me?
Okay, you guys can put me
I-
out now, that's fine.
Good, I didn't hear you.
Okay, Councillor Hoagland.
Yes.
Good. Councillor Casper.
Yes.
And Councillor Anderson, or Mayor Anderson, I should say.
Yeah. Yes.
Motion passes.
All right. And if with approval, unanimous approval of council, we'll also have second reading on July 23rd, 27th. Any objections? Seeing none. All right. Thank you. And our final ordinance 2020-18.
Your Honor, Council, this is first reading of ordinance 2018, an ordinance of the City of Lincoln City providing for the levy of final assessments for the construction of a sewer improvement project known as the Southwest Bard Road Sanitary Sewer Local Improvement District, said LID formed by Resolution 2019-26, fixing and spreading said final assessment amounts against benefited properties within the district. For approval of first reading and set second reading for July 27th. And the reason for that is, again, I would like to expressly state in the ordinance that deferral of potential units is available. It's required in the ordinance that we
Second.
Is there a second from Councilor Hoagland? Thank you. All right, discussion. This is we heard public comment, and that's the city attorney's concern for second reading, so he can make some edits and make sure. Just as a reminder, this is that final leg where it puts the actual costs associated and into the assessment. And Mr. Apicella was correct. It's roughly $42,000 less than originally estimated. So it's nice to see something less than budget. Any questions or anything further to say or questions? Yes, Mr. Mark.
I just, for the sake of the property owners, I wonder if, can we remind them how long they have to pay this bill? Basically, it's spread out over many years.
Right.
I don't remember exactly how that works.
It's a 20-year payment plan typically. There's also the ability to do SDC installment payment as well. Now, the issue I was concerned with is that there are several property owners that have over 20 potential multifamily units. If you remember, we had that same issue with Mr. Biddle on 36th Street. He had a number of potential units, and he had an attorney, and we went round and round whether or not he would defer or do a development agreement to fix the units, the number of units at a lower number. Ultimately, he went with deferring the maximum number of units, and I believe that just recently was paid because one of the triggers occurred. So I wanted to make sure that we specify that deferral is also an option here.
Okay.
So when for example, when property sells, then the deferral is up and you have to pay the assessment. So.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, that was actually, I'm sorry, a question I had that basically the bill could be attached to the property in a sense. It sounds like that's what's happening. And then the other thought I had, just again for the sake of the property owners, is when this project's done, does that make it likely that the road will get paved?
Well, the project is done.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
It's all done. So no, this was a project simply for the sewer.
Yeah.
And if they want to do another LID or in partnership with the city, but yeah, there's no plans as yet to widen and pave that road. So, any other questions? All right. We have a motion on the table with to approve with a second. Roll call, Mr. Twig.
Certainly. One quick question. Could I please get who gave the first, who moved for that motion?
Ms. Casper.
Thank you. Thank you.
And Mr. Hoagland seconded.
Okay. So Councillor Casper.
yes.
Councillor Hinton.
Yes. Yes, yes.
Only counts once. Sorry.
Yeah.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes.
Councillor Hoagland.
Yes.
Councillor Coos.
Yes.
Councillor Mark.
Yes.
And Councillor Parsons.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right. Thank you, sir. And again, is there any objection to having second reading on July 27th meeting? Seeing none, so it's unanimous consent to move it. All right. We're moving quickly to the end of the agenda. And this is the final order, 2020-2. Mr. Apicella?
So I did not include it in the original packet. I emailed it to you earlier today. The gist of this final order was that the council denied the request of I believe there were 8 properties, 7 owners, I believe, to change the zoning and the land use designation for these properties from what is now RM to multifamily to recreation commercial. We call this Scruton et al. Because there's obviously more than one owner. And when I went back and listened to the discussion, there was reference to, we've previously denied a couple of these requests as privately initiated requests because they are inconsistent with the unamended portions of the comprehensive plan. Although spot zoning doesn't really exist in Oregon anymore, that's kind of like the way to say it's spot zoning, that it's going to the middle of what is essentially a residential area and inserting an inconsistent element, a commercial element. Part of the problem with this application was, although there were representations about it would stay vacation rental, and there was no commitment to that in any kind of development agreement. So in fact, I think Councilor Casper pointed out, you have to look at all the uses that are listed for recreation commercial, and to put them here would not be appropriate. I did incorporate the findings of those two recent cases as support. I did indicate that we were rejecting the idea that just because the comprehensive plan hasn't been amended and updated, that we somehow would not process this. So we kind of set that idea aside. Instead, based on the application, it's inconsistent with the unamended portions of the plan. So you have that. If you feel comfortable, you'd like to act on it tonight, I'd ask for approval of the final order, authorize the mayor to sign.
So I'd entertain a motion. Is that you, Ms. Casper?
So moved.
So move
I'll
to
second.
approve final order 2020-2. Is there a second? Deanna? I see.
Yes, I'll second it.
Thank you. All right. As I recall, the original vote was 4-3 on this, wasn't it, plan?
Yeah, it was either 4-2 or 4-3.
Yeah, something. Well, making 7 since nobody is absent or was absent. So,
Yeah, I guess.
okay. Discussion. So, no discussion. Mr. Tweed?
Councillor Casper,
Yes.
Councillor Hinton,
Yes.
is that a yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's okay. Councillor Hoagland. Councillor Hoagland?
Sorry, I was clicking the wrong thing. Sorry. Yes.
Okay. No problem. No problem. Mayor Anderson.
No.
Okay. Councillor Coos.
No.
Councillor Mark.
Yes.
I think I got everybody, didn't I?
Did you get Councilor Parsons?
Did I get you? I'm sorry.
You didn't. I'm a yes.
No, I think I have everybody.
Yeah, you do.
Thank you. Motion passes.
All right. Thank you very much. All right. We also have economic development, new tools for housing. This must be Allison and Jody. Welcome. At least the visuals there. Yeah.
Hello, Mayor
Hi.
and Council. Thanks for having us this evening. Jody is going to be leading this presentation, and I'll be here to help answer questions. And Anne Marie Skinner is also here for any housing questions. So we're excited to get going and do a revisit of the presentation that we showed at the Urban Renewal Agency just a couple of hours ago.
Hello, good evening. We do have a PowerPoint presentation for the meeting to guide the discussion. Allison, if you're able to bring that up. Just as a little background, we did have this discussion with the Urban Renewal Agency earlier this evening, but we of course want to revisit it with City Council for anyone that may be watching this meeting. And so City Council has made housing a goal, and both City Council and the Urban Renewal Agency have asked staff to come back with options for policies or programs to encourage the public and private sector to address the housing needs in Lincoln City. So that's what we are doing tonight. Wanted to start off by giving an overview of the existing housing stock in the city and a brief overview of the projected housing needs over the next 20 years. And then we'll go through some policy questions and I'll let you know what the agency has decided, and then I'll leave it up to you to decide if the council has any changes to those decisions, if you want further discussion, or if you would like to have the same decision of how you'll answer these questions that the agency made. So if you can go to the next slide and the next one, please. So we'll be going over the existing housing stock needs and projected housing needs. Again, that's based on the 2017 Housing Needs Assessment, and that just gives an overview of the housing needs in Lincoln City. So in 2017, there were 5,734 housing units in Lincoln City, and you can see the graph here in Exhibit 2 or 24, especially gives a good image of how these housing units are dispersed. And there's a good mix of single-family detached townhomes and plexes, multifamily units, and mobile homes and others, such as manufactured homes. We can go to the next slide. So the housing needs assessment goes through two different scenarios. So the scenario A is the baseline housing forecast giving the population trends and seasonal housing demand. And then scenario B goes through the baseline scenario A plus the additional workforce housing imbalance. So we highlighted at the bottom here the average of these two scenarios over the next 20 years. Given the projections, we would need 1,649 additional housing units, and that's about 82 units per year over the next 20 years. And again, that was from 2017. And so based on scenario A and scenario B, the housing needs assessment breaks up the percentage of the housing unit types that we would need to accommodate the population trends. So you can see here we calculated the average percent of the housing stock increase. Again, taking that middle between the scenario A and scenario B. And this is just a look at the housing units built in the recent years. And you can see broken up by housing unit types again. So you can kind of compare where we're projected to be and where we are and where we fall short. And gives you a good idea of the housing units that are needed in Lincoln City to meet the workforce housing needs. So do we have any questions? Any questions about the housing unit projected before we jump into housing affordability?
Go ahead, Mr. Mark.
This, hi Jody, this last chart where it says multifamily units, is that dwelling units in multifamily buildings? Is that what that means?
I believe so. Yes, yeah.
So like 33 apartments were built in 2016, 30 apartment, actual individual apartments. Okay.
Correct, individual units.
And then the other question I had, because I mean, I've seen this number before, the 82 units per year for 20 years. Does anybody look at building I mean, a lot of availability. Where can we put, is it possible to put 82 units, new units in Lincoln City for the next 20 years? Does anybody look at space?
That's
You
a
have to
great
expand.
question, Counselor. And Anne-Marie Skinner is here as well, but I know when we did the housing needs assessment, we also did a buildable lands inventory, which considered zoning and what sort of lands we have in the city limits, and actually I think in the urban growth boundary, and what sorts of things were allowed to be constructed there. And I don't know the actual percentages, but it's my impression that we do have plenty of land to do housing. Anne-Marie, do you want to add anything more on that?
I don't have anything more to add, but I would just second what you said, that based upon the zones and uses that are allowed in the zones, we do have available land for housing. Property
Okay,
owners
thanks.
need to do it.
All right, I think we can move to the next slide. So another part of the housing needs assessment that I wanted to point out is the projected housing affordability. And this will be really important when we talk about the eligibility criteria for new economic development tools. So it breaks down the available monthly rent and approximate attainable home price for individuals in the high, upper middle, lower middle, low, and very low income brackets. And we can come back to this slide if you want when we go to the eligibility question. So the first question we talked about with the Urban Renewal Agency are what economic development tools can encourage or improve housing in Lincoln City. And so the tools that staff has identified as good tools for meeting this need would be the Facade Improvement Loan Program, the Energy Efficiency Loan Program, Pre-Development Assistance Program, and Infrastructure Partners Program. So those four are all existing programs that have been developed for commercial properties. And so we wanted to talk about adjusting the program criteria to allow for residential properties. And then lastly, we have the Mixed Use Housing Loan Program and the Workforce Housing Loan Program. Those are two new programs that have been included in the wide economic development toolbox that we've talked a lot about, but the program criteria and eligibility has not been defined yet. So that's what we would like to do in a future meeting. Any questions about those particular tools before we move on?
So Jody, you'd like us to concur that these tools, we'd like to add residential to their use. Is that what I understand?
Correct. Yes. So if any of the programs, if you feel would not be appropriate for residential use.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I don't see, I can't see a hand or all the pictures. If so, just speak up if somebody's got a comment. I don't see anything on the screen. Okay, why don't you go ahead? I'd say.
All right. So then the next question we had was diving into the eligibility criteria for these residential economic development tools. So some of the options we've presented, the first is to restrict funds based on the home value in projects for home ownership. And under this option, there's a sub-option B would be to restrict funds to home units valued at or below $252,000 minus the amount of the loan requested. So that was the option that the agency recommended, including that second part that's underlined for 1B. Another option was to income qualify, so that would be to restrict funds to applicants between 80 and 120% MFI. And another option would be to income qualify for the first round of funding, restricting to that 80 to 120% bracket, and then as more funds are available, open it up to others based on the home value and home size, just depending on the level of interest and the funds available. And then the third option would be restricting funding based on home size. So looking at home units approximately 1,200 square feet or less. So again, the agency had discussed doing a combination of all of these options, so including 1B, 2B, and 3. So then I would ask the City Council if you would agree with these eligibility criteria, or if you would have a different opinion looking at it from the city tool.
Jody, I would think on this, on the income qualifying piece, and just for clarity, income qualify for residents, maybe residents slash applicant, because we had talked about if it's a rental unit, the actual occupants of the rental unit, we would want to meet this income criteria, perhaps?
Correct, yes. So we can revise that to be the actual resident.
Does anybody have any questions on, again, for the public, we certainly, the Urban Renewal Agency happens to be the same as the City Council, and so we hashed through this for an hour and a half earlier before the City Council meeting. So I don't want anybody to think that the councilors aren't interested or haven't been interested. They're just worn out through all this so far. But it's good seeing it again. So thank you, Jody.
Yes, and thank you. I appreciate you all having this conversation again with us. So it's definitely helpful. So any other questions about the eligibility criteria?
Mr. Mark?
Maybe to that point, since we did review this, is there, there's so many steps in this process. Are you, Jody and Allison, you're going to come back to us with sort of a, because there were changes that we had kind of the consensus for. Are we going to come back with a refined version of this in the near future, or what's the plan there?
I think from here, based on your answers to these policy questions, we will have some kind of program actually outlined. And so we did that back in May. We had proposed program criteria for 4 of the tools and realized we needed more research. So based on your discussion this evening, we'll take that and revise the program criteria and bring the actual tool back to you. And then from there, if we need to go through and refine the eligibility more, we can do that until we get the formula correct.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And is there more options here on housing units?
Yes, so we can go on to the next question. We talked about what types of housing units should be targeted and how specific does this need to be. Either make these programs available for all types of residential units or only include single-family detached or multifamily units and so on. So the Urban Renewal Agency decided that they wanted to make these available for all units. And we did have a discussion about whether or not ADUs should be included in that or not. And it sounded like there was a general in favor of including ADUs, but might need a little bit more time to look at whether or not those should be included. So then I will turn it back to you, councilors, to decide if that's the same decision you would want for the city tools.
Anybody got an opinion? I think we did hash that around quite a bit, and I think the end result was as long as the occupant met the income targeted criteria, that it was worth having all types of housing come out of the ground, unless I'm mistaken. All right.
Yes, and that was my understanding as well. So this would be on top of the additional eligibility criteria that was on the previous slide.
Yeah.
I guess we can move on to the next question. Was should these economic development tools include owner-occupied and renter-occupied dwellings? So the options were to include only owner-occupied dwelling units, to include only renter-occupied dwelling units, include second homes and short-term rentals, or some combination of the above options. And there was a resounding answer from the Urban Renewal Agency to focus on both owner-occupied dwellings and the renter-occupied dwellings, again noting that these would be for income-qualified residents.
Okay. Agreed.
And then the last question we talked about was who should be able to apply. So that's really who does the city want to partner with for housing developments, whether that's nonprofits or for-profit private property owners. And again, the Urban Renewal Agency said that they would want to partner with any developers that meet the other determined criteria.
Yeah, I think the agency and council was both eager to have any and all property types of housing enter our communities. So I don't see any other questions, comments. So what do you need from us, Jody?
I think so those were the main questions we wanted to work through, and it sounds like to me that the City Council would have the same answers that we just discussed as the Urban Renewal Agency. And so from here, we will take that information and, like I said, form it into actual programs and bring it back to you at a later meeting.
Okay.
Unless there's any other concerns about the criteria.
And that would be, again, to Councilor Marks, I think question was, the way we'll see it is in the actual tool document. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, great. All right, any questions of Jody or Allison from council? Yeah, go ahead, Allison.
Go ahead, Councilor Hinton. Would you like to ask a question?
Well, no, I just had a comment. I just didn't want to save all the praise for all of this work just for the Urban Renewal Agency, so I wanted to share a little bit of that at the council meeting. Thank you both. You've done a lot of work and you've read our minds even when we couldn't, so thank you so much.
Thanks for the feedback and for the discussion. I have one clarifying question, actually. I heard mention earlier in the Urban Renewal Agency, I believe Jody and I had been presenting as workforce to be 80 to 120% of median family income or area median income to leave things flexible. And I think I also heard 60% to 120%. Is there some more discussion about where you would want the floor of that definition of workforce, keeping in mind that we do have members of our community at all income scales. I know my dad works part-time, so he is part of the workforce, although he's retired. And so I think what we're trying to do is address what we call sometimes missing middle housing, where there are not any public services or programs to really help people secure housing that's right-sized for their family and in good condition, whether it be a household of 1 or 4 or 8. So do you have any thoughts about if 60% or if 80% is of interest, or would you like us to explore that more and bring back a recommendation from staff?
Well, Alison, I'll tell you from my perspective is you've hit it, that it is the missing middle, because there aren't typically subsidy programs at below 80% or above 80%. They're all below 79% and below. So, you know, anything I think we can do as a community to help fill that gap, is we've got a project, as we all know, we're hoping to get funding on shortly next month, that'll reach deeper. So personally, I would like us to stay in the 80 to 120%. But other thoughts? And this is such a small amount of money at this point anyway. Mr. Parsons?
I concur with you. Stick with the 80 as the bottom floor.
All right. Thank
80.
you.
80.
80.
I agree, 80.
Okay. Looks like 80.
Okay, great. Thank you. And then also there was mention about the energy efficiency loan program and why we would limit that to existing buildings. So we will talk about that in the future. And then could we add something like water efficiency to the energy efficiency loan program? There was a mention about an apartment complex changing all of their toilets out at one fell swoop to be a low flow or more efficient water usage toilet. So I think those are great ideas, and we will also bring those back to City Council.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
I think we all would agree with Councilor Hinton, and thank you for working on these projects amongst your other projects. So thank you. And it does help keep housing in the forefront. So appreciate that.
Yeah.
Any questions of council? Seeing none? All right. Thank you both. All right. Oh, you're going to stay with us with a little urban renewal district and property taxes. Take that subject.
So, Mr. Mayor, I'm going to jump in on that and use both Debbie and Allison to help me when I foul this up.
Okay.
And there was a question, and I can tell you none of the three of us are experts on this topic because it all deals with state property taxes and how state property taxes are calculated. There was a question that came up about who is assessed the tax for an urban renewal district. Is it just within the district, or is it does it go beyond the district's boundaries? Now, we do have an expert. That's Elaine Howard. She's one of the foremost authorities in all of this, but she's on vacation this week, and she said she would be willing to come back, but I just couldn't ask her to do that, especially when we'll see her in 2 weeks and to continue the work on this. But as I mentioned, the allocation of the tax is for urban renewal districts is very complicated because it's tied in with the state's property tax laws, which have been affected by 3 measures: Measure 5, Measure 47, Measure 50, at least 2 court cases, and legislation, and then tax assessors and urban renewal districts and bond levies and things like that. And so it becomes a very complicated process. So what we want to do tonight is just to get kind of an overview of how the tax works. Like I said, I've asked Allison and Debbie to help me on this so that if I veer off, they can jump back in, help me jump back into it. I wanted to start by reading a paragraph that came actually from a publication done by Elaine Howard, and then emphasize what I think is probably the most important part of the tax assessment for an urban renewal district. She wrote, once an urban renewal plan is adopted in an urban renewal area, taxpayers within that area will see a line item on their property tax statements for urban renewal. This can be quite confusing because even if you are not physically located in the area, you will see an indication of the impact of urban renewal on your property tax bill. Now here's the key point. Your overall tax bill does not increase, but the allocation of the revenues the city receives from your payment will be changed as a portion of that payment now goes to urban renewal. So the easiest way for me to say that is that if you have a $1,000 tax bill and it's going to go up by 3%, so there will be $30 that will go up, a portion of that will go to the urban renewal district, but the overall amount remains at $30, okay? Now, again, the question that really kind of came up in the discussion is, do people outside the district see that increase, I got to rephrase that. Do they see an urban renewal portion of their bill on the taxes? And the answer is yes, they do. Okay, so I need to give you just a little bit of overview into the state's property tax laws. And again, I just really want to say I'm not an expert in this. This is really complicated stuff. The Oregon Constitution limits the rate of growth of property value subject to taxation. The limit is based on the property's maximum assessed value. Maximum assessed value can't increase by more than 3% each year unless there are changes to the property, such as an addition of a new structure, improvement of an existing structure, or subdivision or partition of the property. Each year, the maximum assessed value and the real market value for each property tax account are calculated. The property is then taxed on the lesser of the two values, which is called the taxed assessable or assessed value. Okay. In 1990, Measure 5 was passed, and it instituted limits on the amount of tax that can be levied per $1,000 of property's real market value. Those caps are $5 per $1,000 for revenues used for educational services and $10 per $1,000 of revenues used for general government other than educational services. Now here's what's significant about this. The latter generally includes services by cities, counties, and special districts. The limits apply only to the operating taxes and not bond levies. So in other words, that $10 per thousand is not an amount that comes to just one taxing entity. It's an amount that is shared by taxing entities. That becomes significant when you deal with the cap and money has to then be divided up. The passage of Measure 50 in 1997 added another layer of limits to the existing property tax restrictions imposed by Measure 5. Measure 50 instituted a permanent operating rate limit for all cities, counties, school districts, and special districts in existence at the time. The permanent rates were largely set by combining all of the tax levies that existed for that district at the time. The total tax rate of taxing jurisdictions can exceed the established permanent rate only with the passage of a bond levy or a local option levy. These exceptions are voter approved and temporary measures. Measure 50 then capped the annual growth of an assessed value to 3%, no matter the change in the real market value. So in other words, if I have a $1,000 tax bill and my real market value would increase it to $50, the state law says it can only go up to $30 or 3%. Okay. All right, let me give it now. That's a very, very brief and very broad overview, but let me now turn it into what it means for urban renewal agency revenues. When an urban renewal plan is created, the assessed value of the property within its boundary is locked in time or frozen at the amount calculated in the, from the last certified tax roll prior to the plan's approval. The agency then raises revenue in subsequent years from any value growth above the frozen amount. This value growth is referred to as the increment. Before Measure 5, urban renewal agencies receive taxes that would have been imposed by each taxing district on the assessed value of the property within that urban renewal area. When Measure 5 came into place, the legislation that was passed to implement Measure 5 made some changes to the tax increment financing to avoid inequities that could come up. If the Measure 5 tax limits had been imposed under the old urban renewal system, where only properties inside the plan areas paid urban renewal taxes, those properties could have paid taxes that were dramatically different from surrounding property taxes. The legislature remedied this problem by spreading urban renewal taxes over all properties inside the urban renewal agency's boundaries for taxing districts overlapping urban renewal plan areas. Urban renewal taxes appeared separately on tax statements, just like those of taxing districts. In 1992, the Oregon Supreme Court ruled that revenue collected by the urban renewal agency to pay for bonds is inside Measure 5 rate limits, and hence subject to the general government limit. That's the increase amount. Measure 50 had two parts to it. There was the section between 1998 and 2002, and then after 2002. Measure 50 returned the structure of the urban renewal financing to the same form it had prior to Measure 50, with one exception. Urban renewal agencies did not have permanent rates and continued to raise revenue primarily through tax increment financing. After 2002, there were two substantial changes that took place. And I'm just going to jump to the second one and not deal with the first one. If you're interested in that, we can talk about it another time. The second new change was a result of a court case, Shiloh Inn versus Multnomah County, which clarified that all urban renewal revenues must be considered in the general government category for the purposes of meeting the constitutional tax limits, regardless of what type of district was the source of those division of tax revenues. So in order to accommodate both legislative changes and the court decisions, the division of the tax calculation reverted to the method used under Measure 5 before 1998, where the division of tax was spread across the urban renewal agency. Okay, so with all that said, that's your brief social science lesson on property taxes. In order to preserve this is as I understand it, and like I said, Elaine can describe it much more greater detail. In order to preserve the tax equity of the increment and the limitation on the increments, urban renewal agencies, when a district is created and the amount is determined on how much they will receive of the taxes, through its division of taxes, which you are very familiar with it, to maintain equity for those within the district and outside of the district. They apply that division of taxes to both within the district and outside of the district. Now, we probably ought to have a good accountant and a good tax assessor to come in and show the formulas on how that does it. But essentially, again, if you're looking at that $30 increase, what it means is that you'll still have a $30 increase, but a portion of it will go to the Urban Renewal Agency instead of the city, or instead of the fire district, or instead of the school district. And so the intent was to make sure that there wasn't an inequity in how the property taxes was done, and the result of it is that people will see on their tax bills, whether they're in the district or not, an urban renewal tax for that. Allison, Debbie, how'd I do?
Do you want to venture in?
Do you want to go ahead?
I might add, just in summary, so how much taxes you pay is based on, for example, the groups that are levying taxes like the city. So whether there's an urban renewal or there isn't, you pay the same amount. It's just whether the whole amount that the city levies goes to the city, or does it get split between the city and urban. And they've chose to show that split across the city rather than just within the urban renewal. It looks like when you're looking at your bill, because you see the city and then you see the urban renewal, it looks like the urban renewal is an addition to the city, but it's not. The urban renewal actually reduces the amount that goes to the city, so that the two together is the same.
Allison, you want to add anything?
Sure, and I think what we wanted to do was just make sure that as we're having these conversations about forming a new urban renewal area, that council is understanding correctly what happens with taxes. And taxes do not go up when there is a presence of urban renewal, and taxes do not go down once urban renewal areas go away or sunset or pay off their final bond. But the taxes are reallocated, and that does happen across the city rather than just the properties located within the urban renewal area boundary. I also wanted to mention that all of the financials that we'll be discussing and that we have discussed on July 27th, when we present to you the final urban renewal plan for you to consider forming a new area. All of those financials reflect correctly. This isn't a new thing. This is just a real technicality. Mr. Chandler described correctly that it is kind of the urban renewal 401 class, the advanced version, drilling down, and there are not a lot of people that understand it in a very deep detail. Our tax assessor does. And I have had communications with our tax assessor, and he has been responsive and thorough and correct about what he has explained to me about things in the past. And Elaine has, checked that, and we've all corresponded over the years on various questions about why is urban renewal on my tax bill, and what happens, and who funds what. And so I know that the people who are doing the jobs about calculating those assessments and allocating those funds, as far as I know, do it correctly. The other thing I wanted to mention is that, our year 2000 development plan area that is coming to a close, that was formed before all of this Measure 5 and 50 type tax law. And so when we started that in 1988, we had about 10 years on the books before some of these tax codes started to change. And that did, with a few other things, that did impact the rate of our financial projections. In 1988, I remember our financial planner at the time, Ron Tierney, used to say, it is a dartboard. You do your best projections of what you know, what is going to happen over the life of that urban renewal area, which is long-range planning. And he felt that we got it really pretty right because we came very close to that. We did, however, spend more time in collecting our maximum indebtedness, and that is for several reasons. And I think the primary reason is these measures 5 and 50 that reduced the accrual of the revenue for everyone. So I have kind of just rambled. I hope I didn't add more confusion, and I think just in summary, it is a difficult subject, and we just want to make sure that you all are comfortable and that you have the opportunity to ask us questions. If we can't answer those questions tonight, then we're happy to just make note of them, and we will talk about this more on July 27th. But if there is something specific that is kind of nagging at you, we're happy to listen tonight.
Thank you, Allison and Debbie and Ron. Does anybody have any questions regarding the taxes? Deanna?
I don't have any questions. I just have a comment. Ron, you did a good job. Your next career. No, I just want to say I'm real thankful for the time that we took tonight to explain this, because throughout the process of developing this new plan, from the very beginning, there's been confusion about who pays what and why and how much. So hopefully they're all watching tonight and they have their questions answered, and thank you.
And that's a good point, Counselor, because it is a confusing and complicated process. And by virtue of the urban renewal showing up on your tax statement when you're not even in the district creates also, confusion. And that's probably the number one question I get. And see, it is another tax is the answer, that is usually given to me in a form of a question. So with that, I think Allison and Jody, we'll see you guys on the 27th and kind of the final, look at a proposed new district. That's the plan? Okay.
Yes, thanks, Mayor.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. Ron, were you going to do the COVID-19 update?
I am. And Mr. Mayor, there was something that did not get on the agenda, which was just an update on the 4th of July. Are you okay if I combine that with the follow the COVID-19, right, to talk a little bit about the 4th of July?
Yep.
As well?
Yeah, that'd be fine.
They are a bit related. So some of the most recent updates are as recent as today. And I wanted to just touch base on those so that everybody is up to date as possible. Again, as you know, this is very fluid. It changes regularly, almost daily, it seems. The governor held a press release or press conference today, and there were some significant changes that came about as a result of this. Effective Wednesday, July 15th, Oregon's face covering requirement will be expanded to apply to outdoor public spaces when 6 feet of distance cannot be maintained. In addition, indoor social get-togethers of more than 10 people will be prohibited. If you recall, that was a big discussion that we had with the county and the other cities, and on whether or not it should be cut back from 25 to 10. The governor has now made that decision. The gathering limit applies only to indoor social get-togethers. This new rule does not change the operation of businesses or churches at this time. The governor noted that the failure to comply with the new requirements would lead to more outbreaks and more restrictive closures with greater impact on Oregon's economies, communities, health systems, and families. She's quoted as saying, "We need to do absolutely everything we can to reduce transmission in ways that do not require us to close down businesses again. The proof here will be in the numbers. Either people adhere to this requirement and be a positive force for stopping COVID-19, or I will be forced to take more restrictive action measures. It all depends on you. Your choices determine our future." She shared some statistics that are interesting to note. Oregon reported more cases in the past week than in the entire month of May. The last time Oregon had less than 100 cases in a single day was more than a month ago. Half of all cases in Oregon are from people under the age of 40, and 1/3 of all cases are from people under the age of 30. Currently, people in their 20s and 30s are the most likely group to get sick with COVID-19. 2 Oregonians in their 30s have died from COVID-19. Since Oregon began, most common events that spread COVID-19 viruses based upon the latest data from Oregon Health Authority include when people get together to celebrate with families and friends. And examples include graduations, birthdays, weddings, holidays, family barbecues, family reunions, family pool parties. COVID-19 is spreading more among social activities involving group of younger people, and OHA has recorded outbreaks linked to exercise classes, fraternity parties, bachelor and bachelorette parties. Also today, on a more local level, the County Board of Commissioners did vote to extend the 24-hour hold rule until August 18th for the unincorporated area and Yachats. New cases in Lincoln County, in the state, there are 12,438 total cases in Oregon. That's an increase of 268 from yesterday, and there has been 237 deaths, which is an increase of 3 from yesterday. To date, Oregon has 288,274 negative tests, and Lincoln County has had 5,124 negative tests to date. To date, all deaths in Oregon have been individuals that are 30 to 80 years or older, 105 females, and 132 males. In Lincoln County, we've had 361 cases, 5 deaths, and recovered 18. So that is just a brief report on COVID-19. We did notice that it did have an effect on the 4th of July, perhaps in the biggest sense because we did not have an event itself. We found that the population down on, or the people out on the beach, visitors in Taft, was much less than it has been. And of course, there wasn't our own fireworks going on there. And it seemed to have spread up north since there was not as many people down in the Taft area as we normally have when there is an event. Our chief police and our Parks and Recreation director have provided me with some information that I wanted to share with you tonight. There's a little bit more information that I still putting together, and that's on what kind of tourism that we saw coming in over the 4th. How much of it was overnight, how much of it was day trippers, how did it compare to years past. I will have that for you in just the next few days. We had a total of 33 police personnel that were deployed for the event. We had 22 Lincoln City police officers. We had 1 Lincoln City Reserve officer. We had 3 Toledo officers, 2 parole and probation officers, and 3 dispatchers and 1 evidence technician. They were assigned as follows. 4 officers and 1 patrol sergeant were assigned to regular patrol. 2 officers were assigned to Rove Patrol, utilized to assist with custody transports, provide cover, and handle overload calls. We had 8 officers assigned to Foot Patrol in the Southwest 51st area, which includes Siletz Bay Beach, State Beach, and the neighborhoods surrounding Southwest 51st Street. We have 1 officer assigned to Foot Patrol in Cutler City, including the beaches. We had 3 officers assigned to remain in the Rhodes End area, 2 officers assigned to Beach Patrol, utilizing our new ATV patrol vehicles. 2 officers were assigned to Beach Patrol between Canyon Drive and Rhodes End. 2 officers assigned to Beach Patrol between Canyon Drive and the Taft area. 1 patrol sergeant assigned to overseeing command post, the chief, the lieutenant, and the evidence tech was assigned to command post for collection of the seized evidence. And then, of course, the dispatchers were on dispatch duty. We had a total of 240 events. These are calls for services or officer-initiated activity. 97 calls came in as fireworks complaints. Our officers themselves initiated 87 calls pertaining to fireworks. We had a number of contacts resulting in fireworks seizures was 22. We had 758 non-emergency calls to 911 and 157 emergency calls. We had 7 people that were arrested. I might just pause here in the statistics for just a moment. The fact that we had a very significant incident that required so many of our officers who performed well gave us an opportunity to see what would happen if there was a significant incident. In the 5.5 years that I've been here, we've been fortunate that we haven't had to deal with that big of an incident until this week, or until the 4th. And so what we saw was that our resources, despite the fact that we had extra resources, had to be pulled to deal with a significant incident. The officers performed marvelously in that, and I truly appreciate what they did, but it did give us a chance to see what would happen. And that's going to be significant in just a moment or two. We issued 9 citations, criminal citations for the fireworks. As I mentioned, we seized over 250 pounds of fireworks. And then in our parks, signage was put at all parks amenities, entrances. We blocked access to the parks. We had extra staff that were dealing with the bathrooms. Again, one of the things that Jeannie mentions, we saw much less impact on the 51st and Taft, while the rest of the trash cans and restrooms were utilized a bit more citywide. The trash and the restroom sanitation was manageable. This year we didn't have any vandalism and no graffiti until July 8th. And we only heard 2 concerns about trash. We did have a number of people that were up on the knoll and the thumb, and that was one of the areas of complaint that we had. Now this kind of, all of this leads to, there's a discussion that the city council needs to have, as it pertains to expectations. Every year that we've been here, we have done something more, something a little bit more to each year to try to control the use of fireworks, illegal fireworks and fireworks. We've spent tens of thousands of dollars in doing these things. We've upped our education campaign, both abroad and through Facebook campaigns and through local signages. We've been more active with the businesses. Our police officers have been more involved with their patrol. This year, the big significance difference is the use of citations instead of just confiscations of the fireworks. And as was mentioned, we had 9 of those. We're now using these Polaris off-road vehicles to patrol the beach. And each year we have done a little bit more. We're reaching a point now where a real significant question that the staff has begun to ask themselves is, what are we trying to reach? At what point have we succeeded? What are the expectations of the city council as it pertains to dealing with fireworks? Well, let me give you an example. If the city council's expectation is no fireworks on the beach, and I might point out that that is the law of the state. All fireworks are prohibited on the beach, including legal fireworks. The city is going to need help in doing that. We don't have the manpower to be able to stop all fireworks on the beach. Our biggest focus has been illegal fireworks, but legal fireworks are also prohibited on any state park, including the beaches. If that is the goal of the city council, then we're going to need to bring in people that are to help us. And quite frankly, my view of it is that the state needs to step up and help us on this, because it is a state property. And our resources will be stretched very thin if we try to contract to bring in more and more resources with it. So one of the real big questions that we as a staff feel we need to ask of the city council is, what do you view as success? What does it actually mean in the control of fireworks? That's not necessarily a question that we're expecting an answer from tonight, but it is one that we need to start thinking about. And again, I really came to the conclusion from this last meeting that we are about enforcing the state's property, and we need assistance from the state if we're going to continue to try to increase what it is that we're doing each year. Might point out that one of the problems that we had this year was that the beach access, where cars can go down onto the beach, there were 2 rangers there from the state Forest Service or Parks Department, and they tried to control it because it was spilling out beyond the borders, north and south, and eventually they gave up and left. And we saw vehicles that were going up and down the beaches beyond the borders of that. Again, that's a major challenge that the city has for enforcing a state law on state property. So that's the biggest question that we wanted to bring forward to you, to have you think about, and that we could have in a further discussion at a later time on what your expectations are for the 4th of July.
All right. Thank you, Ron. And I might just note from my conversation with mayors up and down the coast, everybody, the entire coast seemed to be inundated this year, worse than previous years when it came to illegal fireworks. So it wasn't just Lincoln City by any means. But so I don't know if it was a combination of pent up demand, people pent up for so long, and decided to get to the beach and let it loose. But Any short comments? Deanna?
I have a question and then I have a couple of comments. For those 9 citations, were any of them given to the people who created the incident at the Inn at Spanish Head? Because weren't there 7 there? Did they all receive citations? Or
Jerry can jump in and fill in, but in the case of the riot, the incident that took place, they were arrested.
I know. I'm sorry, I didn't clarify myself. I was talking about the fireworks citations that were given out.
Yeah, the fireworks citations went to others. Correct, Chief?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you. If I could, anyway, I would encourage Jess, I'm happy to have more conversation about fireworks. There were a lot of good comments that came to us. I did want to say something about the COVID, if I could here. Let me find it. One thing when we're looking at the new restrictions of 10 people indoors, that's going to be a tough one, and it's going to be really hard. And I just kind of have a question for us to think about is, we have many VRDs that are that sleep 16, so I just wanted us to kind of think about that. This whole thing is going to be difficult to manage, and I don't see us as being the knocking on the door and counting people inside a house, but anyway, just a thought. And then I did want to mention that I spoke with Katie Jacobson today, chair of the county commission, because she had made a request at the meeting that I was at when we were with Allison and Jody and Elaine about the urban renewal district and giving the county the briefing. And before we got into everything, she asked me if I would talk with council about changing our gathering number from 25 to 10. So I wanted to find out from her if the new governor's mandate of the 10 people in for the indoors would reach her concern. And as you said, we are on a watch list. Our county is. She's real concerned about our numbers, and she wants to get the numbers down. So because she doesn't want us to have to start closing down again. So she said that that's a good start, and if we wanted to consider moving to 10 people outdoors too, that would also help. But she said that that the governor's new mandate should help. And so anyway, I just wanted to pass that on to everybody. I don't know what we think about that, but and I did want to just say that there's an excellent new resource guide posted on the county's COVID-19 webpage, and this is new just of Wednesday, and everybody should take a look at that. And then there's also some CARES relief funding that we have a deadline of June 30th, and Ron, you're probably all over that, or Debbie or somebody, but I certainly don't know where we are with applying for more funding.
We're watching it.
Okay. Sometime could we get an update about where we are with all that again? Everything moves so quickly. It's just, I've kind of lost track of where we are.
Yeah. Right now we have to wait for, there's a registration process they want us to go through, but they don't have their website ready for it yet. So we're waiting for them to open that up.
Of course. Hurry up, but wait, right? Yeah. Okay.
Anybody else have questions of Ron or either fireworks or COVID? I might point out that the city website also has direct links on COVID information. So
it's on there now.
When you get those kind of questions from your consumer, from your neighbors, push them to the website so, you get out of interpreting for them. Let them go direct to the people who are feeding us the information. So, Judy.
Yeah, I had a community member come to me who has COPD and breathing problems, and she suggested that people use face shields rather than masks. People say, oh, I don't have to wear a mask, I have a medical condition. Well, she's a person who has a severe medical condition, and she said they're very helpful and not threatening to wear a shield. So I think that's an alternative that we can offer to people as an idea to keep us all safe. The other thing I wondered, Ron, was we were intending to reach out to the family who was taunted. Did we do that as a city, and what did we extend to them?
Yeah, I'm going to let Chief Palmer talk about that, because there's some legal issues because of the arrests in the courts.
I meant the family.
He'll address that.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know what we can do about the echo there, David, but the thing that I think we need to be cautious about as a governmental entity is showing any influence on this criminal case at this time. So I know that the hotel that they stayed in and the Chamber of Commerce has reached out in a significant way to this family, and they are aware of your desire to reach out to them as well. But I think it would be inappropriate for us to put any slant on this case prior to it being fully adjudicated. And then once that's cleared up and out of the way, then I think it might be more appropriate to do that. But I would strongly discourage you from reaching out right now, just because you're reaching out as a governmental entity, and I wouldn't want to see that affect this case or have the appearance of trying to affect that case.
Good, that's what we need to know. Thank you.
Mr. Appicello, do you want to add anything, or does that cover it?
No, I was just going to say no witness tampering. That's all.
Okay. All right. Other questions? All right. Do you have anything else for city manager report, Mr. Chandler?
I don't.
Okay. Mr. Appicello?
Yes. So I either need the planning commission to have a meeting, or I need the council to vote to whether or not to call up a decision the planning commission made. So on the 7th, the planning commission made a tentative oral decision to deny a subdivision and plan development. They did not approve the final order denying it. They simply made the oral decision. But then the planning commission meeting for next week was canceled. They don't have another meeting until August. The applicant's indicating they're going to appeal. We have time frame running. Basically, if we reschedule another planning commission meeting, and I guess approve a final order, and then the applicant can file an appeal, or the council may, by motion, call up a decision of the planning commission, review of which basically in this case would have to be a de novo appeal to the council, and by motion you would set the date, time, and place of the hearing. So I can't really explain the planning commission's decision, except that it seemed to go contrary to the advice of legal counsel, the city engineer, and the planning director. I guess I'll just leave it at that. So either council needs to make a motion to call up subdivision 2020-01, subdivision PUD 2020-01, and set a date and time for a de novo hearing, or I need the city manager to schedule a new planning commission meeting so that they can approve a final order. And I don't want to wait until August because the time's running.
So, Mr. Apicella, this would be if we called it up, we would deal with this on the 27th of July?
No, I think we can have the, you don't want to tell the applicant, oh, by the way, your hearing is next week. But if we were to wait, then I'd have to wait until August to get an order approved, and then they'd have the 10 or 12-day appeal period, and then we're scheduling a hearing either in September or late August, and we have timeframes we're supposed to meet to get a final decision out of the city council. So I'm not sure exactly how close we are. I talked to Anne Marie about it, and we're not that bad off, but I don't want to wait a month to get a final decision out of the planning commission. So Anne Marie's going to be leaving, and I need either Ron to schedule a new planning commission meeting to approve the final order, or the council to call it up. We know that the applicant will file an appeal. So if you call it up, there is no appeal fee, but I think that's only $250 anyway. But we get things moving. So normally I wouldn't ask you to call something up before the final order, but the code does not appear to prohibit you calling something up before a final order is written. So either that, or you can ask Ron if you would schedule a special planning commission meeting to approve a final order.
So I guess I'm still trying to get our arms around the rationale. Either we are or aren't under a time issue, and I don't have a straight answer there. If we let the process run, are we missing the time frame allotment, or is it just getting closer? And or is it because we'd have and Anne Marie is leaving anyway, so how does that play into this whole process?
Okay, I don't know the exact date for the 120 days.
Okay.
I know that if we have to wait until August to get a final order approved, that's a month for that, and then the appeal period. So that takes us significantly down the road. I don't know the exact dates, but
The exact date for the 120 days is September 26th.
okay. Well, it's up to you. If you don't want to schedule another meeting until, if you don't want to call it up and you just want this to play out, then I guess we'll wait until August to approve the final order at the planning commission.
Well, I guess what I'm trying to get, and maybe because it's publicly, but is it, somehow we don't like the decision of planning commission? I haven't even heard the planning commission decision or discussion, and I don't know how many other counselors have. So you're kind of leading us blind. Are you asking us to not have the planning commission make a decision and we should just take it ourselves?
What I'd really like is a planning commission meeting scheduled so that they can approve an order. I don't know how to write the order because I don't understand what they did.
Okay.
They need to take a final action, and they really ought to do it before August.
So Anne Marie,
Richard,
can you?
it's easy enough to. It was canceled. We just uncancel it.
Yeah, I had
canceled
requested
from
that.
the website. It's very simple.
Mr. Mayor, I'll talk with our planning commission chairman Crone tomorrow.
And see about.
I don't think she'll have I don't think she'll be opposed to holding a meeting so they can finish this up and go beyond just the oral.
Yeah. Well, and I guess I'm looking for guidance. Isn't that the best route to go, to have planning commission finish their review and decision on this application?
Sure. I'd like them to articulate what they did. They didn't really give much of a, they didn't give me much to work with, so.
Okay. All right. So, counselors, you know, I'm just trying to get us to better understand what we were being asked. And it sounds like Ron and Anne Marie will go ahead and, you know, schedule a planning commission meeting in July.
Yeah.
Correct? Okay. Anything else? Any comments come in, Ron, off the public comment?
No, sir.
All right, great. Councilor Mark, I understand that, you know, congratulations are in order for you. Your lifestyle is, I don't think, really changing, but you want to tell us about it?
It's not the finger, it's the ring.
Oh, okay. Congratulations.
I have sometimes felt the need in conflict of interest situations to make reference to my domestic partner. I now get to call her my wife.
All right. Good for
Very
you.
happy.
Congratulations.
That's very nice.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Anna, any comments?
I just want to ask a question. Anne Marie, is this your last meeting with us?
Yep, she says.
It is. It is.
Well, we should be doing something. Fireworks. Oh, no, not that. But
Fireworks.
Please, no fireworks.
just kidding. Anyway, just wanted to give you a formal goodbye, send off, and thank you so much. And I loved how you were trying to get us organized here with all of our ordinances and very, very helpful. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Counselor.
All right. Councilor Parsons.
While the numbers on the state level look bad for COVID, cautiously optimistic here locally. It looks like the county, we've had one new case in the last 4 days, according to the public health. So let's keep that trend going.
Yes.
Where I'm at.
Good thoughts. Good thoughts. Diane. Nothing?
Don't have anything.
Okay. Judy?
Oops. No, nothing specific.
Okay. All right. And Rick, did you, besides taking your congratulations?
Besides my wedding bliss, yeah, I did. There were 60 people on the beach. First, I wanted to say I'm really pleased with the general compliance that I'm seeing in the grocery stores and all. It's actually very unusual now to see someone without a mask. But we saw 60 people on the beach at a gathering the other day, and no masks, and they were yesterday, and they were close together. So I think anything we can do about that would be great. I did have a question. I wouldn't expect an answer right now, but I was wondering if we needed more police officers or law enforcement officers of some sort, how many would we need to really make it an impact? And along that line, I wonder if it's possible to even consider a change in strategy. If instead of trying to cover 7 miles of beach, what if we concentrated the entire force up at Road's End, for example, where things seem to be really bad? Things weren't all, we had our share down here in Cutler City, but it was not as bad as in recent years. And, you know, if we just made a concerted effort and really cracked down on one area, could that possibly send a message? And then the other thing I wanted to mention is I was hoping we would be finished by about 9:30 because we're going to go out to look for the comet, which is going to be visible in the northwest sky, bright naked eye comet. It's going to be the first naked eye comet I've seen since 1997, and I hope people get out to see it. And it's supposed to be visible in the northwest, which is perfect.
All right.
For Lincoln City, and tonight is not the best night. Tonight it's going to be getting higher over the next 10 days or so, and higher and more visible. And they said about 10:30 at night is probably about the best time. So,
all right, okay.
Enjoy.
Get out. All right. Thank you, Mr. Hoagland.
Thank you. Again, and I'd like to echo Deanna's statements. Thank you, Anne Marie. It's been really nice working with you. I appreciate your work. The only thing I know is constituent stopped me and had great concern over one of the sidewalks that's being put in at Southeast 19th Street, which is where Hilltop is. I think there's a bus stop there as well, and as we all know, that there's a lot of rush traffic right there. It goes from 2 lanes to 1 if you're going south, and then you're coming up from that no man's land going north. And the concern was that people would not see drivers would not see pedestrians crossing, and they already, I guess, have some issues there at that point. So I don't know if there's a way in which we could look at that again, or maybe have some really strong pedestrian traffic sighting. I would hate to be notified now and us not look into it, and then somebody passes away there because it's unsafe.
Okay. All right. Anything else for the good of the order? All right. Thank you. I think Anne Marie, thanks very much. And we understand you're staying in town, so we'll see you at the grocery stores. All right. Okay, let's stand adjourned and see you on the 27th, if not before.
Right.
Thank you.